Every single one. Every one. Every single one. The right-wingers or the libertarians that will tell you that this was such a big deal, etc., etc. Notice they had very little to say about the left making this memo. How was I able to predict in March that this would exactly happen? We'd see assassinations, we'd see violence against law enforcement. How was I able to predict it? I've been saying for months it's going to get worse. They're intentionally setting up the situation. You can see they're instructing people to use their vehicles to obstruct ICE. That predictably is going to lead to, at some point, some ICE officer discharging their weapon. It's inevitable. These people didn't give a shit. They sit back silently. Nonetheless. And the one time it occurs, they'll say, well, see, that's it. Now it's time to step down. Yes, anytime someone is intentionally doing that to law enforcement, they don't need to be warned. They know what the potential consequences are, particularly if they have a deadly weapon. I can think that this situation was tragic. I can think that ultimately, though, it doesn't seem right now that it rises to the level of criminality. I don't think this was a good shoot. I don't. And I predict that there will be some sort of civil penalty for this. And I think that the reaction to this should be allow that to occur, and Trump should immediately double the presence of ICE. Every time there's a violent altercation, Trump's team should set an agenda deporting twice as many people the next day. Every single time. We will not stand back to terrorists that say they will use violence and intimidation to prevent the law from being executed. That should be what happens. I understand there are people on the right that'll say, maybe this wasn't a good show. That's fine. I'm in that camp as well. Politicians did reach, they absolutely overwhelmed law enforcement and could have gone in if they chose and didn't. Sorry, checking. Let's read some super chats here. Unforced Ego, man, what's up? $20. Spent the last 10 minutes trying to give my opinion, but Susan isn't falling for the algos. I don't even know which to do. Mouse click, punch the swallow. My money's on a good old click once all the facts are. Yeah. Bandit, $2. Says Alex Preddy had to pay $320. Family's gonna get paid. David Moore, $20. Says easy fix for this just require ICE to have a libertarian on call to view the frame by frame before they decide what kind of games are there. Thanks so much, man. Intel Wild, $5. Says Rob. MP's lefty was remember, he put you on. Intel Wild, $2. Says Pisco. Say it right, bro. We got triple X. $5. This is the most insurrection thing I've ever seen. King Jaffe Jim, $5. Says Trump's still asleep. Letters, taking a risk against Thanks so much. I agree. Kyle ran ME. $2. Thank you. I Stand America, $5. Says writers preached Minnesota State Capitol. I'm not hearing about January 6th. Yep. Triple X, $10. Says they're trying to deport us. True. And Perry, $5. Says my buddies were
Can you guys hear me? Music should be loud, don't worry. You got me there, right? Hey boys, what up, word war debates? We're the best.
Okay, fuck them.
We're the best. Go to what? Only the real ones now.
G2, thanks for the gifted membership. Appreciate it.
We're going to talk about Crossfire Hurricane.
And the call for Trump is far less significant than the call against him.
There's no way he brings up Carter Page. I actually don't think we're going to talk about Carter Page. What up, everybody? I'm going to call Rob Noerr real quick. I'm going to mute him real quick. Hope everyone's having a cozy little Sunday.
Hey, what's up?
What's up, brother? Hey, do we want to go on camera or just good how we are?
We're good how we are. Give me a second because I don't want to screen share DMs or anything, but I forgot you were going to use Discord, so give me a second.
Oh shit, is there something better?
It's all right. This'll work. People are about there we go. All right. Can you all hear Pisco if he talks?
Testing 1 2 3. Hello.
All right. So let me know if you guys could hear that.
Oh wait, let me I think I need to change my audio for you guys so it's a little better. 1 second. Is that any better? Right. Testing 1 2 3.
That's a little louder. Yeah. That sounds better.
Awesome.
All right. I think the best way to do this is why don't I give you a half an hour to take the conversation anywhere you want, and then I will take a half an hour, unless you have less time.
We can start with you. Whatever you want, man.
That's fine. I'm willing because I think the first thing that you're going to want to talk about is
what happened.
Shooting. Yeah.
That's what I would prefer.
Okay. Well, then for half an hour, I have no problem.
Okay.
You can control the conversation. That's fine. That way it avoids us getting into what areas that you wouldn't want. So no problem.
This is what Anna and Pearl were supposed to do. Right. So that sounds good. So basically, I heard you say that you thought that the family of the decedent should be able to win civil damages for this case, at least in part because of an unreasonable use of force. And I think that this will probably entail you to believe that there's some criminality there. Not necessarily that you think that charges should be brought, because there could be a lot that goes into that decision, right? For whether charges should be brought, about the evidence or whatever. But my intention is to sort of convince you that there was some criminality here. That's my goal.
Okay, so let me just be clear. Everything I say is just based on what I've seen thus
Yeah,
far.
of course.
I don't think that I've
Preliminary.
seen enough evidence to make a declarative decision on this. And there could be more footage that comes from like if individual I don't know if CBP wears body
Yeah.
cams. That I don't know. But maybe more of them had stuff. Of course, we'll want to hear their testimony. But in general, yes, my argument is that there was some that the most likely scenario is that there was a negligent discharge and people operated probably within the scope of their training if they thought that they heard a shot and knew that this gentleman was armed in eliminating the threat. But we will see because the negligent discharge was probably the fault of one of the officers. That to me would imply, although there's not criminality, it rises to the uh, degree of a civil penalty. So there
Mm.
wasn't an intent to break the law or anything like that. That's my best interpretation of what's happened.
Yeah. So I just want to focus in the inquiry a little bit. So I totally agree that all this should be like subject to like a preliminary opinion. I think that's fine for you to caveat that way. I think that's okay. So I'm not like.
Do you agree with that, by the way? That you haven't made up your mind?
Well, I'm pretty convinced of what I've seen. So, I mean,
Okay.
I'm willing to say that this is what I
fine.
think occurred. Now, that's not. I want to be careful about this. Same thing with Renee Good. Doesn't mean that he's going to be charged for a bunch of reasons. There could be a lot of reasons if he's charged or not. So the opinion just really is not whether or not I think a jury will convict, whether or not they should bring charges, although I think they should, whether or not I think they'll be likely to succeed at trial. It's just about what I think happened. I just want to be clear about the scope of what I'm saying.
Sure, that's
And,
fair.
yeah.
I just wondered. I didn't
and
know
there
if
could-
you'd made up your mind totally or what, but yeah, that's fine.
I'm like convinced that this is murder. And there could be
Murder.
like
So not even
murder. Yeah. Murder.
manslaughter or something. Okay.
Yeah. And the reason I think that is because I think the elements of murder are all met out. And I think the elements of murder are causing the death of a human being with malice aforethought and without justification. And I think the officer who shot definitely caused the death of the human being. I don't think there's any dispute about that.
Sure.
This term malice is a term from the common law that means like bad heart type of thing. And it's usually found with either a purposeful mindset, that is, you intended to cause the death of a human being, so it was your conscious object, or you're practically certain that death will occur. So either of those two, either knowledge or purpose or intent. It's not to break the law, it's purpose to cause the death of a human being, or in practical certainty the death will occur. And there are things in which you can have that be taken away from a purposeful / knowledge mindset. Like, for example, let's say you like walk in on your partner and, you know, she's fucking the bartender or something, right? There's a thing called the heat of passion defense. There's other kinds of like extreme emotional disturbance that can take you, an intentional killing can become a non-malicious killing. So then we have like intentional manslaughter or voluntary manslaughter. But in this case, we don't have any of those like doctrines, I think, at issue. Perhaps an imperfect self-defense, I'll grant you there. From a subjective point of view.
I would think that that's clear. I mean, it's even more clear, I think. Not only is a self-defense claim, even if it's not right, but an attempted self-defense or the intent of the person was self-defense. I think that's a better claim to not having intent to murder than walking in on your spouse. And I think that that's going to be buttressed by the fact that it's law enforcement. Now, I don't know the law on this, but my assumption is that there's sort of a presumptive sort of immunity where a law enforcement officer is given more leeway in a situation like this than maybe I would be. If I'm wrestling with a guy and think I see a gun and then shoot him, that's probably going to be a different level of, you know, less leeway given to me than if an officer does it. Is that not the case?
So there are different doctrines of justification for officers as opposed to self-defense of others. And certainly, like, I don't deny that there's such thing as an imperfect self-defense claim that relates to basically whether or not you have a subjective belief. Regardless of whether or not it's objective, if it's subjective, there are ways that you can downgrade the malice. But I guess I won't focus so much on that if that's going to be contested. And we'll just get into some sort of criminal homicide because I don't think
if I could get it.
Yeah.
Well, the forethought portion of it's the only other thing I want to say. Like, I get the malice portion, the forethought, right? In that case, like, I don't know. I'm deferring to you here, but would forethought imply like in the moment you could have forethought,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
1 second, or does it? It doesn't have to be something
yeah,
that was like pre-planned, like 10
yeah.
minutes for previous.
So there's additional like intensifiers that states will put up for murder, for premeditated murder, but that's different than malice aforethought. That's just like a term, like a Latin term. You can just say malice or whatever, and that can be formed instantaneously. So you can form the requisite mens rea for murder like in an instant, just by you don't. It doesn't need to like have any background planning or anything like that to get malice aforethought. So that's a different term.
What if just to be clear, had the man like just to go through this, right? Had the man reached and got his gun and just fired into the ground, like it just went off as he was reaching for it, just out of instinct, would they have been justified to shoot him?
If who did? Which man?
Preddy, is that his name? Alex Preddy?
Yep. If he had like gone and reached for his gun to for what? Sorry, they see him reach for the gun, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So I think that would justify initial shots. There's additional shots where I think would not be justified, even on that view, and I can talk a little bit about that afterwards. But different case if he's going for his gun.
Then the question I would have is, then like surely the idea of like premeditation or forethought, if they think he was reaching for the gun, would be different, right? Even if they're mistaken.
Yeah, so
that's not going to be a defense against murder, because if you're like, had he reached for the gun, they would have been legitimate. But if they merely thought he was, and let's say in this case falsely thought he was, then it's not legitimate. But that seems to speak against the idea of malice forethought. That seems to speak to like, oh, they would have credibly thought that there was a legitimate case for the shooting for a defense case.
So, yeah, I think you're getting like sort of tripped up on the term aforethought, malice aforethought. I don't want you to get tripped up on that. Like, it's just think of it malice, a killing with malice, okay? And so the aforethought part is like there's some like initial notion of like lying in wait type murders and obviously premeditation, but that is not like the distinction between murder. Like you can decide and get really fucking angry and murder someone in like in a second, and it's still fucking murder, notwithstanding the fact that it's like formed instantaneously. So don't get tripped up on like the pre-planning stuff or the aforethought.
Well, then just the malice. Fair enough. Just the malice portion of it. My understanding was the way you defined malice there was you had to have like bad intention either to kill someone or reasonable suspicion that your actions could kill them.
Practical certain, right? like yeah, you know that. So someone who shoots a gun,
shooting. I think that's clearly that meter. I think is met.
Correct.
I think it would be absurd to say that they didn't think. So I'm not going to.
So where we tweak,
argue that.
Where we tweak, Rob, I think for any reasonable person is on the justification part, right? Either with a perfect self-defense case or an imperfect self-defense case. That's where we tweak.
Correct.
So,
but then I don't think that's murder. Just to be clear, I think an imperfect self-defense case
would not be murder. That's correct.
Be murder.
Yeah. An imperfect self-defense case would not be murder. Well, I just don't think that.
To get on that.
Yeah.
Not to get on it, but you said that the shooting of Renee Good was also murder. Correct?
I also believe that. Yes. Sir.
I think that really impugns your credibility here, because that not only like was seemingly a much more clear case of self-defense, but to say that it rises to the level of murder and not just like an involuntary manslaughter charge seems to be insane.
Here's a problem with any kind of like involuntary thing. Okay. It's not going to be involuntary. A person who shoots a gun at a human being is practically certain that death will occur if you shoot them in the head. So the involuntary aspect relates to the result element, which is causing the death of a human being. Someone who shoots a gun at another individual knowingly, right? I know I'm shooting a gun at a person. They're not going to be able to claim involuntary, reckless, like anything. So it's just a question of justification. The only thing that would downgrade it from murder in that case would make like voluntary manslaughter, or he just gets off, right? So it's not really like, I think it's not credible ever to say it was negligent homicide for someone who shoots a gun at a human being, because the negligent there applies to the result, and the result is causing the death of a human being. Someone who shoots a gun at a person's head, point blank, is practically certain that death will result. Now, it could be that the shooting is justified, therefore it's nothing. It's not even like a crime. It could be that it's imperfect self-defense, in which case, downgrade it to some form of voluntary manslaughter. But I don't think in any world it would be like involuntary manslaughter or reckless
the term
homicide.
I guess, let me be clear. When I say involuntary, let me put it this way.
Just manslaughter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Nonetheless, I think that like to imply that that was murder is nonsensical. I mean, the vehicle literally hit him. Let me ask you this. This is the way I saw this explained. Had she pulled a gun in an attempt to flee and shot it in the air, would the officer be justified in shooting her?
I think absolutely, yeah.
Okay, why? Can you explain
Yeah.
the scenario why that's the case?
Yeah, because in the case of someone pulling a gun in that situation when they're driving, I think a reasonable officer from their position presumes that they're going to use it on the cop
Because it's a lethal weapon, correct?
Well, no, that's
Yes.
that's
Simplistic. If they pulled a
simplistic.
lighter and started brandishing that, you would say that's not a lethal weapon.
Well,
The reason would be because if they are attempting to flee and they pull a lethal weapon, you would anticipate that they could reasonably use that lethal weapon against you. Well, you agree, I would
Right.
assume that a
Hang
vehicle
on a
could
second,
be
hang
a
on.
lethal weapon.
So yeah, anything could be a lethal weapon, but the question isn't whether something could be used as a lethal weapon. It's whether the drawing of the firearm in that context evinces some sort of like clear intent to use it and apply it to the officers in that context when they're driving. And that is the
I don't know that I don't know that that's the case. I think you're wrong on this, and I would like to see someone. Yes, I don't think that the key issue will be whether or not they think the intent was to intentionally use the weapon against them.
No, whether
I
a
think the
reasonable
question
officer would
is
perceive it.
Correct. What a reasonable officer would fear. So, for example, like even the intent of Renee Good, whether or not she intended to run over the officer, is irrelevant. What is relevant was, did the officer have a reasonable fear that he was about to be ran over? And I think undoubtedly the answer is yes.
Well, no,
And it would be the same as then someone pulling a gun. She may have been pulling the gun to shoot a rampaging bull that was running behind him that he didn't see. Nonetheless, the officer would be justified in that shooting, and it would be tragic in that case. She literally was trying to help the officer, but the reasonable officer would have said, she brandished a lethal weapon in my direction. Same true here. And of course, you might say, well, it's a little different with the vehicle. Problem is, not when you're talking about that close. It is clearly a potential lethal weapon. This wasn't that he was 20 yards away. He literally got clipped by the vehicle. So I
think you're misunderstanding the test. The test is objective reasonableness, and the test, as what the Supreme Court tells us, is you have to measure the need of the officer, the agent. What's the lawful purpose in the case of any incident, with the amount of force used and whether the force has a tendency to stop the threat. So in the case of a person who is drawing a weapon after they're being stopped by the police and while they're driving, a reasonable officer in that position there's no really like other good explanation that a reasonable officer might draw from that situation. Whereas there is a reasonable explanation, or what a reasonable officer would perceive with respect to someone driving away in the context of Renee Good, namely that she's trying to escape and not hit.
But that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant, right? Because my understanding is the courts have ruled that it's not, are there other reasonable expectations? So, for example, you could say, well, there could be that she's just trying to drive away. It could be that she's intentionally trying to run over the officer. It doesn't matter if there are other possible intents. What matters is there a reasonable explanation or fear on the part of the officer that the lethal weapon was about to be used against him? Saying, well, he could have in that moment came to the conclusion that it was reasonable she was trying to avoid him.
So I'm not trying. I don't think you understand what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, with respect to a gun, in the context that you're describing, the hypothetical didn't happen. It is so preposterous, right? To think that there wouldn't be, or that in other words, a reasonable officer would immediately perceive an intent from regardless of whether it's true or not, would perceive an intent to use that weapon, apply volitionally towards an officer. And that is not true of the circumstances in the case. In the case, I think it's not reasonable that an officer would perceive a serious risk of bodily injury or death. And that's regardless of whether or not the car in fact struck him, which I think is, there's equivocal evidence at best for
disagree.
that. Okay, sure, but putting that aside,
if you want to go back to this case,
yeah, I do at some point.
Time, so.
But the last point I want to make on the Renee Good situation is, I don't think that there's a reasonable case that one can make that applying force in the context of a car, even assuming that he were glanced by it, would have any tendency to prevent the qualifying threat, because of course the car's going to keep moving, and ICE officers are trained that cars keep moving when they're shot, when the driver is shot.
There have been cases where so your claim would be that under no circumstance could an officer ever fire.
No, I never said that. Come on.
But let me finish. It seems that you're implying that because no matter what case we would have, even if someone had intent to drive at the officer and kill them,
no, that's not
you
what
would say yes. But I'm saying the inference would seem to be that you would say even in that case, a shooting would be unjustified because the vehicle would keep moving forward. And therefore it wouldn't help protect the officer's life.
That's precisely what I'm not saying, Rob. I'm saying if I thought it was reasonable for them to perceive that she's intentionally trying to ram over someone, like think about the case of this guy, Daryl Brooks, who's like driving into a parade or something, right? Then, of course, killing the driver has a bunch of ways that's connected to the nature of the threat. The use of force is absolutely connected to the qualifying threat.
But the use of force, but no qualification of the use of force would be the safety of the officer.
No. Absolutely. Officer safety is a lawful purpose for which use of force is justified. But preventing, so the force needs to have some tendency to prevent the threat. Agreed with that?
But
agreed or not?
But again, no, I disagree.
So you think it would be reasonable to use force even when a reasonable officer wouldn't believe that it has any tendency to prevent the qualifying threat?
What I believe is in both of these situations, it would be analogous. That if you say that,
can you answer that first?
Yeah, I will answer it. I think that in the way you're explaining it is not true. That the courts have ruled that there is a reason for officers to use violence if they feel or use lethal force if they feel that they are about to be ran over. And that I've yet to see anywhere. Listen. I've yet to see, and I'm willing for you to bring this up, any court case that says to the opposite. That the officer is not justified in using lethal force, even if they felt that the car was about to run them over, because, quote, shooting the person would have still had the car move forward. And in the case of Daryl Brooks, I don't see how you could say that the officer, in part, would be allowed to shoot him for fear of his own life. The same would apply. His own life's already forfeit if he's in front of the car, because shooting won't prevent that. If he moves out of the way, then his life wasn't in danger. You could say that there was an added impetus for this guy's intentionality means he could be a harm for the public, and so eliminating for that reason, but not for the safety of the officer. These would be analogous situations.
No, they're not. And I can explain why. So you said there's no case law that stands for the proposition that a reasonable officer, when using force, needs to consider the need of the officer in relation to the threat.
That's not what I said, just to be clear. You could respond. What I said was that suggests that shooting at a vehicle barreling down on them should not be allowed because it wouldn't involve their chances of increasing their safety.
No, it depends on it depends on the it depends on the circumstance. But I think we need to agree with the base principle first, which is the use of force needs to be justified in virtue of a goal. You're correct with that, right? That's correct. Yes. And the goal when it comes to officer safety is to prevent the thing that's imperiling the officer, correct?
It doesn't matter.
Yes,
but yeah, okay, I'll say yes. I'll leave you go through your line of question, then I'll respond.
So yes, the relationship, in other words, to justify the use of force, there needs to be a goal, an end, right? That's what it means for something to be necessary, right? Reasonably necessary to an end. There's some relationship between the end and the use of force. And so in order to justify use of force, and this is straight from the court, Supreme Court, Kingsley, in 2015, in another case called Lombardo, considerations such as the following may bear on the reasonableness or unreasonableness of the force used. Quote, the relationship between the need for the use of force and the amount of force used. In other words, the court is to inquire as to the relationship between the officer need, the lawful purpose, and the use of force applied, right? It would be silly to think, for example, let's say that the lawful purpose of the officer was to detain the suspect and only to detain the suspect for processing. Shooting a gun at that person doesn't have any tendency to further that aim. It's going to kill the person. But let's say the goal is something else. The goal is officer safety. Well, then sometimes shooting the gun at the person will have a tendency to reduce the threat related to the lawful purpose. And so I think we agree on that. We agree that there needs to be a goal to the use of force, and there needs to be a logical connection in the mind of a reasonable person between the goal and the use of force. In other words, just because there's a threat by itself isn't enough to use force. If a reasonable officer would think that applying force would have no tendency to lower that threat, you would agree with that?
No, I did.
You wouldn't agree with that?
Yes, I agree. I agree, and I fundamentally reject. I would like to see you show one court case ever that suggests that it doesn't increase officer safety or it's illegitimate for them to fire on a vehicle that is barreling down on them.
Well, no, I don't think you're going to find a per se.
Show me one court case ever.
Wait, I don't think you're going to find a per se rule like that from the Supreme Court on. No. A court, a case involving a situation in which driving a vehicle towards an officer in some capacity was found unjustified. Is that what you're asking? I wouldn't need to find that.
Let me.
I wouldn't need to find that, right?
Let me steel man your position. Your position is as follows. The officer, one, had no proof or no reasonable belief that she was attempting to kill him or hit him, correct?
Correct.
Because if there was any reasonable belief, it doesn't matter if it was really her attempt, but reasonable belief that she may be intentionally trying to hit him, then the shooting's justified.
Well, I think then there's more questions about the other shots, but in general, I think it would be a much harder case. Yes. Okay,
so I think you would because then a reasonable person could have thought, a reasonable officer could have thought she was attempting to hit him. So I think already your case is out the window. But if we go to the next step, that the shooting would be justified if he thought that he would be injured in a lethal way.
And using the force would have some tendency to prevent it.
And using the force would have some tendency to help his chance, correct?
Yeah, right. But there's just no, because of physics, Rob.
Okay, so I want you to.
I want to go to the other case before my time runs out, though. At some point, though,
we could go extra time for you. I asked earlier if you want to move back. That's fine. But so if I could find any evidence of any physicist or something that says yes, actually shooting someone can cause them to slump and turn the wheel or have their foot off the gas, of course it can.
No, not can. Right? When you say can, it just sounds like you're just talking about
reasonably could. Reasonably could.
Right. With that, there's a good reason to believe that it might. Right. A good reason.
Yes. Do you think there's a good reason to believe that if someone gets shot, the direction of the vehicle would change?
Not such that it would be reasonable to shoot. No, because in those contexts,
I completely disagree.
Okay, no, but in those first of all, when the shot happens is like instantaneous to the quote unquote alleged hit. In that context, right?
That's even more of an argument.
No,
yes,
it's not.
He didn't have the hindsight of millisecond by millisecond looking at this. No. He saw a car literally hit him with someone that they were lawfully telling to get out of the car. And
you're basing you're asserting that he's hit on the basis of the video from that angle in the distance.
Yeah,
you would agree that it's unclear, right?
It looks like he was hit, but let's say for the second that it narrowly missed him. Same thing.
Well, that's what I don't understand. I don't understand the obsession with the hit, right? Like the hit is it's a red herring. Whether he's hit or not.
It's not a red herring. If he was literally hit by the vehicle, I think that makes the case clear cut. Yes.
If he in fact is hit, I'll show you an example, right? Let's say that he's hit, right? And then the car is well and truly clear. Let's say it's 10 feet away in front of him. Well, he was hit, and it's a second later. Can he shoot?
It probably.
I don't think that's true.
That has to do, but it has to do.
Maybe on a public. I'll grade this. Perhaps on a public safety rationale, but not on an officer safety rationale at that point.
Okay, but let me concede this. Clearly, there's a time frame at some point that we'd say there's some sort of threshold that the shooting would be unjust. For example, if he gets clipped by a car and then a half an hour later chases it down, we would say that's clearly absurd. But when we're talking about the matter of seconds or milliseconds, then I think the equation's different, and the benefit of the doubt would go to law enforcement on that. And additionally, that hypothetical is not what happened.
I know
it was that he was either hit or he was narrowly hit, and it was a split-second decision from someone that they lawfully were who was breaking the law, who they were trying to apprehend.
Yeah,
it seems to be quite clear that the benefit, I think that what's happening is that there is an unreasonable expectation being put on people like you that have a bias against ICE.
No.
That are saying, I think that it's clear cut. In fact,
why do we do this? Like it's just
I don't think
making the conversation. No, I'm not saying you're being rude. It's just like, why even? Because I'm just gonna say no. I'm not being biased. And then you're gonna say, yes, you're being biased. You're being a bad faith piece of hack.
It
Like,
doesn't matter.
it's
I'm
just
giving
making
my
the conversation like stupid. But you can.
I
mean,
think
go ahead.
that it's obvious. I think that it's obvious that this was a guy who. Do you think he legitimately feared for his health and safety?
Fuck no.
You don't. You
No, I
don't think that he thought that this vehicle could run him over?
If I thought that, I wouldn't make the claim that it's murder.
Okay, so as long as he had a fear, now you're making a different argument.
What do you
as
mean?
As long as he had a fear, it's not murder.
What? No, it's about reasonable fear.
Okay, as long as he had reasonable fear, it's not murder.
If he had a reasonable fear of a qualifying threat, which in the case of the use of deadly force is going to be, it's not just any fear of serious bodily injury or death.
Back the statement you just made was, if
What
I
statement?
thought it was reasonable fear, it wouldn't be murder. Now you're backtracking on that.
With respect to the qualifying threat, I thought that was clear. Did you think I?
Well, I think
did you think? Wait, Rob, come on. That's not a walk back. Did you think I meant as long as he had a reasonable fear of any kind of force being applied to him? You couldn't have thought that that's what I meant, and I'm walking it back now.
I thought we were talking about reasonable fear of this vehicle hitting him and causing significant harm. I thought that's what we were talking about. That wouldn't be murder. We're not talking about. Real quick, please.
Yeah.
I know it's yours, but of course I'm not saying a reasonable fear of him stubbing his toe. We're talking about being ran over by a vehicle. I thought we were operating on that assumption. That is a lethal situation.
Such that I don't think any time there's a car, like, I don't think that that's true. That people have this view that any time a car could hit you suffices for a qualifying threat, such of serious bodily injury or death at any speed. At any, we'll just stretch it. Like, imagine it's 1 mile an hour coming towards an individual and you're 5 feet away and you know it's not accelerating, let's say. It's not a per se rule. It's a totality of circumstance analysis.
I would say you have to be very careful with that. Will there be a situation hypothetically where I could say this advancing vehicle didn't have reasonable fear of like significant harm? Possibly. Right. But even at 1 mile an hour, you could run someone over. If the wheel gets on top of his leg or something starts to climb him, yes, you could kill someone at 1 mile an hour.
No, I don't doubt that. All I'm trying to say, that's why I added like the feet disparity there. You know, it's not accelerating at that point. I'm just saying you can find scenarios in which that's why it's a totality of circumstances. And right before we get into this recent shooting, something you need to consider, because the court might consider it. They haven't decided on this, is the doctrine of officer-created hazards. That has not been decided by the Supreme Court. They left it open in this case, Felix v. Barnes. And that might play in.
It's a different question. Like, I think that clearly the officer's within his bounds to be trying to get this officer out. I think the fact that if you're afraid someone's going to flee, and you're circling the car, you're expecting them not to advance into you. Do you think that she knew that the officer was in front of her?
Yes, I think she knew where he was. He was looking at her.
And do you think that a reasonable person should know that if you advance a vehicle in an attempt to flee while someone's standing in front of the car, that it could cause harm to them?
It could. What do you mean? Wouldn't it be by could? You mean it's reasonably likely to cause harm?
Yeah, so if someone's standing in front of your car and you accelerate, that it could harm them in a significant way.
Right, but like that's assuming that you think it's going to hit it from the perspective of the driver. I don't think
she knew the officer was in front of the car.
And again, it's inverting the analysis. The question, the state of mind of the officer, not the state of mind of the driver.
That's true. But what we're saying is, while we're looking at her state of mind, right? It's like she clearly was breaking the law to do something.
No doubt, but that's not the question. I mean, I will grant that.
So then I think that that bar's even lower or even higher to me than the bar of the officer. Because the officer didn't have to know her intent. He just had to see that there was a vehicle coming at him, have a reasonable fear of his life. Your hypotheticals that you're saying is like, well, it could be this, it could be that. We could dispense with the hypotheticals and just look at the exact situation, which was a vehicle about to run him over.
Well, hang on a second. When you say it's about to run him over, are you saying that a reasonable officer would think it's going to, quote, run him over?
Correct.
And by run him over, do you mean make any contact whatsoever? Or do you mean substantial contact?
I mean make contact make contact that would be substantial. However, to qualify that, any contact would qualify as that. Because if someone is because if someone's accelerating to you, even at 1 to 2 mile an hour, and the vehicle runs over you, it could seriously injure you and kill you. And so I don't think in the split-second decision that an officer they're telling her to get out of the car and she backs up and then accelerates towards him, that he's going to be thinking, perhaps this car will hit me, but it won't do enough damage. And I have to question what her intent is.
No, that's
she
not what
might just be trying to flee as opposed to intentionally trying to hit me with the car. I think that is an unreasonable burden to put on law enforcement.
I don't think it's unreasonable for an officer who's looking at a woman, aiming his weapon at a woman, to be perceiving what the woman is doing. I think you'd agree.
How long did he aim before he shot?
I'm not. It's a second or it's not that long.
Split second,
Yeah,
right? Right.
Doesn't
like
matter.
it's not like he was right. So he literally, and I'm glad you admit he's looking at the woman. So he didn't see the tire and what direction it was pointing.
He's looking at the woman who's turning the steering wheel.
It doesn't matter.
Of course,
the split second to say, I know the judgment she's turning the wheel will mean the car will narrowly miss me. That's an absurd qualification.
All these actions happen in split seconds. I mean, if the test isn't like, is it happening instantaneously? Like, we have to analyze it for its tendency to be reasonable, and we have to actually apply the analysis. And surely, if he can have the wherewithal to assess the threat, in that moment, we should consider all the things he's seeing and noticing and what a reasonable officer would perceive, including the fact that she's steering the wheel.
What if I put 5 clips up and I play each clip a second at a time, which is about how much time he had to respond? 2 of the clips will be unreasonable and 3 will be reasonable, where there's a person and a car's going to advance towards them. I'll give you 1 second to analyze each one and you tell me which are which. Fair enough?
I would prefer to go to the next murder. And because we're going to waste time, but also by the way, I'll
give you a half hour on the next one. That's fine. But I think that I think that reasonable people could see that this is an unreasonable standard that you're putting.
What do you mean?
They can make your own justification why they think that you're calling this like murder. I think that it's nonsensical. I think it's a clear-cut case of defense.
Okay, so
I don't even think it's close.
And just to be clear, after the car has passed, you understand the human reaction speed is faster than a second for responding to dangers. This has been scientifically tested.
That might be true.
Yeah. So like someone, whether or not I'm able to perceive a threat, I have no gun training. I'm not in the heat of a moment, with my, experiencing everything the way that officer would, looking at a screen. That's not going to be representative. And we know that cops are able to make these sorts of risk assessments in less than a second. And so why would you claim that they couldn't?
I'm not saying that they couldn't. I'm saying that even the most trained of officer in that time is going to be, we have to admit, are human, right? And like, it's absurd. So let me tell you that if this is the case, like if we take a different shooting like Ashley Babbitt, he couldn't have waited 1 more second. Perhaps she would have turned around. He had to shoot right at that second.
Well, we can get into it because I think you're going to go into the hypocrisy argument, but I'm
not going to try to get into
the qualifying threat persists and continues to persist throughout her attempt there. So the question isn't right. The question isn't whether or not
there was no threat. There was no known threat that she was going to use lethal violence on anyone.
A qualifying threat of protection of the public. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could be definitely.
Okay, why couldn't it? But as you know, right, the officer here could have had a qualifying threat of protection of the public as well. If this woman is reckless enough.
Because flight has been found not enough for that.
Let me see. In 2 scenarios, either one, he had a reasonable belief that she intended to run him over, which clearly would make her a danger to the public, right? You acknowledge if me and you both agreed, if we
courts have found per se that flight in a vehicle is not enough for danger to the public. The cases that show this are cases like, hang on, let me finish. Cases like Plumhoff, cases like Scott v. Harris, where there's like a crazy high-speed chase, or the person has an intent to, that a reasonable officer would perceive of like running people over. Flight by itself is not enough. And I think this is kind of like a bad faith argument because you believe the shooting of Ashley Babbitt was reasonable. So why are we doing this? This is just a hypocrisy check.
I don't know that. Now listen, I don't know that it's reasonable. I'm willing to say that I gave the benefit of the doubt, but I'm going to
do you have an opinion or not on it?
Let me finish. I give the benefit of the doubt to Michael Burr, but I have not seen video. I haven't seen enough to I'm basically just relying on stories, right? I saw like one really shaky video, but I didn't see from the perspective of Michael Bird, so I don't know. But can I envision a scenario where an officer would say, I think that she's advancing to possibly do danger to me or to other people behind me? Yeah, I can envision it.
But I'm not asking, can you envision it? You don't have an opinion on whether the Ashley Babbitt shooting was justified?
I don't know. I haven't seen the evidence.
You haven't seen the video?
Why would I make... I saw like one video, but not from his perspective.
Well, I don't know that there's a video from his perspective. Why would you need that?
But that's what I'm saying. So how would I know? I'm telling you, I don't know why it's impugning me to admit that I would want to see more evidence before I made a legal application of it. Do I think that he probably fired too quickly? Yeah. But does that rise to the level of criminality on his behalf? Probably not. Okay. That's my opinion based on what I've seen. I just don't know. I would have to see more of his perspective and like the circumstances around it.
I mean,
I just don't know.
I don't think you grant this. If the same circumstances were happening and this woman were crawling into your home, like breaking into your window, do you think you would not be justified to shoot this person?
Well, I think it's a different scenario. Breaking into my private property and me being startled by it and shooting would be different than, for example, let's say there was a big party and people were wrecking stuff and I shoot someone. Yeah. That could be a different scenario, right? So, but again,
I get it. But no, this is a person. No, but after you've shown up with a gun, you're like, stop, do not come in, right? Warning, right? After that, and the party people keep coming in. I don't know that we would say that you're not justified in shooting them.
I would say this: I 100% would be more likely to discharge my firearm if I feared someone was attempting to run over me, that I was demanding stop and was being hostile, than someone crawling through a window.
An angry mob that's trying to get at people. I mean, what do you think? What do you think a reasonable officer would believe?
That wasn't the scenario. That wasn't the scenario you just outlined. No. Angry.
Well, let's take Ashley Babbitt. Like, what do you think a reasonable officer in that situation thinks Babbitt is trying to do?
Protest.
Okay. I mean, that's pretty.
I don't think that there was based on that rationale, then there would have been justification to shoot all sorts of people on January 6th, correct?
Yeah, I'm not glad that they didn't kill more people.
I'm not claiming you're glad.
And by the way, people will say that. But yes, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. I think that there are some things that in that context, and that doesn't mean, by the way, that every single time that people are in a place that they're not supposed to be, that would rise to that specific standard. It's a totality of circumstances analysis.
So tonight,
but also not everybody. But also not everybody. Yeah.
But tonight, when we see people violently breaking into a hotel, smashing the windows to try to get in after ICE, same thing.
You don't think
should be allowed to shoot them?
If they've evinced an intent to go and attack ICE officers, don't you think that you and I would be the first to say justified to shoot if we actually think that a reasonable officer would perceive that they're trying to like kill ICE or attack ICE, seriously injure ICE?
The question is,
you would be the first. You'd be the first to say that, man.
Okay, you see the video. So should they shoot?
In which case, in the actual situation,
as we speak, they're breaking into a hotel.
No, that's a different. Sorry. That's a different question. Should they shoot versus would they be legally justified to shoot? And just keep that in mind.
Legally, they would be justified to start opening up tonight.
It depends. I haven't seen the full video, and we'd have to look at that as well.
See, no,
but I've seen the thing is, I've seen the Ashley Babbitt one. I've seen the Ashley Babbitt one. You have so just to be clear, I've seen the Ashley Babbitt evidence. You claim you haven't.
You've seen the Ashley Babbitt thing that I have. I haven't seen from Bird's perspective. I don't believe you have either.
There's no Bird camera.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. So I don't know. I can't make a judgment. I haven't heard his testimony. I don't know what's going on. What I saw was very shaky cams. Originally, when I talked about this, I thought that literally he was like in front of a door with Congress behind him. That's not the case. He's in front of a door or a window that there was a still large space before you would get to the place of Congress people. So originally I was like, yeah, if you're literally at the barrier and they're trying to break in, that's one thing. That's not how it was. Secondly, it didn't seem that she was particularly malicious or violent. It seemed like she was doing what a lot of people were, which were getting into the building, and many of them didn't show hostile intent, as you would even have to admit seeing the video.
Yeah, no,
so I don't know if he could reasonably say. I don't know that he could reasonably say that she had exhibited things that he thought would be different than the rest of the protesters who didn't exhibit hostile intent to any civilians. However, I'd still say that.
So they have to wait for her to come. They have to wait for her to come through the window. You're saying that it might be reasonable.
They have to wait for the car to run them over before they shoot.
Well, if they think that the person's, it depends on the intent, right? If you think that the person is trying to run you over, then no, you don't have to wait for it. But it depends what you think their intent is.
So this is what I'm saying, like the unreasonable double standard view. I feel that I'm at least saying, look, I could envision Michael Bird not being illegal. I right now would not charge him based on the evidence I have. The problem is you're the one with the double standard. In the case of Bird, right, you have no evidence that she intended lethality. You're just saying reasonably.
No, I wouldn't. No. So
but
yeah,
in the
so
case,
I'm not saying lethality. But no, you don't need to show lethality.
And yeah, in this situation, right, with Renee Good, we literally have where the officer is about to be ran over. He's like centimeters away. He may have been clipped by the car. It looks like he was, or it was centimeters away. And you're saying in that split second, he had to determine the following two things. One, that even though the vehicle was advancing at him, the intent was not to run him over. And second, even if he thought, once he realized that wasn't the intent, he had to know that discharging his firearm wouldn't increase his chances of not being lethally ran over. That's absurd. And it's clear that you're putting a different standard there than Michael Bird.
It's not a different standard. They have different dispositions. I think that one is justified and one is not, but that doesn't mean that there's a double standard. We just have a different
of course, but I'm outlining that
shake out.
You're giving Michael Bird a lot of leeway on saying what he could have assumed was reasonable.
No, I mean,
you're not willing to give the officer that
I think that I'm giving him just the same amount of leeway as someone trying to break into your home where you're seeing a gun. A reasonable officer would know that she sees them. They're warning them multiple times, and these people are pissed because of the election. You have the senators behind you, and I'm giving the same amount of like fucking privilege I would give someone whose house is being broken into. And yes, even if it's like they're objectively partying and they're breaking into your home or some shit, there have been such cases in which where force is justified because a reasonable person in that position either wouldn't have a basis to know or they've warned. And so yeah, I mean, like, this is not crazy.
Why would he think that how heavy do you think Ashley Babbitt was? 150 pounds?
I have no idea.
And he had no reason to suspect she was 120 pound woman, right, with no visible weapons or anything, posed a significant danger.
A threat of bodily injury or death?
Yeah, why would he suspect it? Yeah.
Because she's against her intent to go past a barricade and not stop at when there's someone with a gun pointing at her.
But so did Renee
in that context, no. Wait, hang on a second.
Yes.
In the context of Renee Good, it's my belief. You might think it's unreasonable that a reasonable officer from the position of the officer wouldn't evince that intent. It's the same with Rittenhouse, right? In the Rittenhouse case, would you say? Wait. Let me do the Rittenhouse case example, and I do want to eventually get to the case before us.
Sure, I'll give you a half hour in the other case. It's fine.
In the Rittenhouse example, yeah, I'll answer.
Fucking destiny on me.
I'm not
You're gonna let me get to what I want to talk to later.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, that's fine then. That's fine. Okay.
In the Rittenhouse situation, you would be like, oh, he was like Rosenbaum was only 130 pounds. He was just running. Like the thing about Rosenbaum in that case, right? You wouldn't say, oh, they have to wait for Rosenbaum. He just had a soda bottle, right? You wouldn't say that. It's the intent that a reasonable person would evince. Correct?
No. There's so many different things, right? With that, first off, Rosenbaum was the first person that Rittenhouse shot. Am I correct about that?
I think that's right.
Or was he the one who was armed?
No, I think that's Rosenbaum is the first person, I think.
Okay, so he was literally inches away chasing an armed man who was fleeing and grabbing for his gun. Completely different scenario.
Wait a second. So I'm not sure that he ever got within some amount of distance of Rittenhouse. But even if he did, it's just to elucidate the point. The point is, you don't just say like, oh, it's just a person, 120, 130, 40 pounds. That's not the analysis. The analysis is objective reasonableness.
No. What I'm saying is, right, there was that. The second is that Rittenhouse isn't a law enforcement officer, so it's different, right? What I'm trying to tell you here is, you're saying, well, this gentleman, Michael Bird, had a reasonable fear of the violence and it has to be a high level of violence. You just said it can't be like a slap on the face. That wouldn't.
No, serious bodily injury, but that can be accomplished with like broken bones and stuff like that.
The Ashley Babbitt, this 120-pound woman, was going to do that, right? But Renee Good, who literally had a lethal weapon and was being told by law enforcement to get out of the car, was disobeying, and then sought to aggress through the human barricade that was set in front of her.
Because a reasonable officer in his position, given my view, that a reasonable officer in his position would not think that she is evincing intent to run him over, and also that a reasonable officer in his position wouldn't think that firing a gun would have any tendency to reduce that threat. Now, you could disagree with that, but it's a principled basis.
Can you show me? I mean, I just think that it's absurd. I think it's absurd, and I don't think you have case law to back it up. I just don't think.
Back what up? Back what up?
Back up the second portion of that. Or even the first.
Well, no, you already granted it, right? So I'll just give you the scenario, right? Like, so there's someone shooting you from the north. Okay, this is an example I use with child logic. They're shooting you from the north direction. All right, and you're a police officer, and you have a gun. Okay. You agree you're under a risk of serious bodily injury or death, correct? Trivially.
Yeah, someone. I mean, if it's a parent, they're shooting at me. Not if I'm hunting or at the range.
Yeah, no, it's a parent that they're shooting at you from the north.
Sure, got it.
To the south is a highway. Okay, and you are anxious. You're the cop, and you're anxious and you're scared, and you can't really explain why you did it. You just started shooting shots to the south. You just start shooting shots to the south. You know the threat is to the north. You're just like inexplicably, like you're just shooting to the south. You're like, fuck, what's gonna happen? Like this, and it goes and it strikes someone who's driving a car. Was that use of force justified?
No, the analogy makes no sense. Though.
No. Can you?
It would be more like why? The better analogy was so you shoot at the guy to the north, but it hit someone else.
No. I'm not trying to use that analogy because I'm not trying to use that analogy.
You're not trying to.
No. The reason is to show the principle, right? In virtue of what is shooting to the south unreasonable.
But Pisco, if the principle
in virtue of what
is,
can you just answer it? Why is it unreasonable?
It's shooting to the south is unreasonable because there is no threat coming from the direction of the south.
But now, right? And because now, if this were like some fucking game of fucking like a drone shit, or do you know what's that movie where you bend the bullet? If you were able to shoot from the south such that it would end the threat, it would be reasonable, right?
Yes,
correct?
But again, I don't know why.
Wait, no. You know where I'm going. Wait, no, you know where I'm going. It's not the fact that the direction is different, because now that's relevant to the underlying principle, which is that the use of force in a reasonable mind of an officer needs to be connected. There needs to be, quote, a relationship between the need for the use of force.
Yes,
and the
car in front of him. He didn't shoot south. No. The car wasn't coming at him, and he turned around and shot behind him. So he shot at the car that was about to run him over.
So in the hypothetical, so let's say, so I just want you to grant the principle, which is the following: if it were the case that an objectively reasonable officer in the position of Agent Ross would think that shooting the gun has no tendency to reduce the threat to the agent, it would per se be unjustified, right?
No.
If. So
no.
Why would you be allowed to shoot?
Because one officer having what he thought was reasonable may not in fact be the case of what other officers would think.
I'm lost for that.
For example, what you think is reasonable is different than what I think is reasonable, correct? So if one person said their opinion, in other words, if an officer came out and said, I've looked at this and I think what this guy shot Renee, I don't know the officer's name, by the way, but the officer, so we'll just call him Bob, that shot Renee Good. I think it was unreasonable. It wouldn't matter because many other officers might say, I disagree. I found it reasonable. What do we do?
I'm just using the test of objective reasonableness. I'm using the language of the Supreme Court. That if it were determined that an objective, because that's what they have to determine, right? What would an objectively reasonable officer, would they think that the use of force is reasonable? I mean, that is the test is objective reasonableness.
So then you're not talking about you're saying that like a perfect objective officer.
Right. Well, I don't want to say perfect because I don't want to apply Superman. I'm using the language.
Well, then how do we define what objective is?
Right. The court says it's a gestalt. It's a morass. I'm going to tell you, Rob, I think that a lot of these, so it just is working off of like case law and principles and expert opinions and use of force. So imagine the Chauvin case. What did they put on to demonstrate whether the hold was unreasonable or reasonable? They brought on use of force experts. This is what his training was. This is what we're taught to do. This is what's safe. This is what's not safe. This is like what the physics say. You have some people like examine whether or not this in fact physically would create a given result. So all I'm trying to say is, the objective reasonable test is like a morass.
I just want to be clear. We already went through this. I said I had someone that put this together, right? Or I saw someone that did this. So I'm prepared to show you a video, right? 5 videos, 1 second at a piece, 3 of them that result in someone being harmed, 2 of them that don't. And you're like, I don't want to do that. Because either you would have to admit if you're wrong that 1, it's very difficult and a reasonable person could interpret this as about to have grievous bodily harm.
No, I'm willing to do that with you at some point for sure. I just, I'm under the impression that, we have X amount of time.
That's fine.
I have to be out an hour and a half.
I'll finish up on this.
I'm happy to do it. No, but can we finish this though? I just want to finish this line and
I'm
then
going
get
to
to
finish up on this. Like I will steel man your position and can do it much quicker. Yes, of course. If your argument is that if you could determine through a complete objective standard that this officer, you could see into his head, or that no reasonable officer would have thought that her intent was to run him over, and that no reasonable officer could have thought that discharging the weapon could have increased his chances of not being hurt, then possibly you would say that this was not a good shoot. Granted, okay.
No. Then it would be. Wait, no, not possibly. Then it would be,
then
right?
It wouldn't be. I say that that's absurd. That's not what happened in this case. That any reasonable person would be able to see that wasn't acting with bias and hatred towards this particular law enforcement institution. That if someone is disobeying law enforcement officers and then advances their car that looks likely to run over the officer, that 1, a reasonable officer could intend that she intends to hit him, and 2nd, even in that moment that he didn't think that, he could think that he could deploy his weapon to increase his chances of not being killed. You have 0 evidence ever of any expert saying that at that length,
hang on.
Shooting.
I do. Because the policies that they pick for the policies. Yes, no. The DHS policies.
You've interfered before I asked the question, so you have no idea what I'm about to ask. So when you say I do have evidence, I don't believe you do. Go ahead.
The policy.
You want to wait to hear what I was going to ask before you say you have evidence?
I'll wait to hear what you're going to ask.
Okay. Do you have evidence that shows that shooting a vehicle that's about to run you over does not increase your chance of surviving?
So my evidence for that is the following. Evidence point number 1. And again, it's not a generic situation. It's the situation that he was in. Is that okay for me to examine that situation?
Explain the situation he was in and the evidence you have that him shooting, that there's, experts that have testified to this or courts that have ruled that wouldn't increase his chances of living.
Well, hang on. I'm not gonna hamstring myself with what you consider to be evidence, which is like a complete factual analog that's found in court. Of course, the Supreme Court instructs us that every case is like very fact specific and fact bound. And what we have to follow are the principles of the Supreme Court. And I don't know that there's a case that's like incredibly the same that ever happened. That's ever happened that's been litigated before. So I'm not sure that I can give you an on point case comparator, and every case needs to be examined independently. But my citation for why I don't think it's reasonable to think that an officer in his position would think that shooting the gun has any tendency to reduce the threat is the car is upon him, and Newton's first law is that an object in motion will stay in motion unless acted upon by an outside force. The fact that the DHS training specifically says that DHS officers are taught that shooting the operator of a vehicle, I think this is almost a direct quote, does not stop the car. It keeps going. And that's why they're taught not to shoot in most cases, not in every case, but in most cases, unless there's the actual DHS policy is you're only supposed to shoot if there's no other reasonable alternative. Now, that's not to say that the policy dictates what the law is, but that is to show you the indication that there's some evidence that a reasonable officer in that position, when the car's like right there, it's right there, isn't going to think that the car is going to be stopped. Okay? And to the extent that there's
wait. With this DHS policy, does it suggest that you're sometimes allowed to shoot only if you know the intent was to run you over?
It doesn't say that, no.
Okay, so in other words, at least you have to acknowledge that the DHS seems to be acknowledging that at some length, shooting the person driving the car that you think's about to run you over is legitimate, including for the safety of the officer. You would have to acknowledge it.
Acknowledge that sometimes it can be reasonable. Yes, I acknowledge that.
Okay, but you seem to imply earlier that under no circumstance
I never said that.
The car's just going to go straight. That's what you said.
No, I never said that in no circumstance can it be justified to shoot the operator vehicle.
You said, we went through this. I said, you're telling me if you shoot the person operating a vehicle, they couldn't slouch, remove their foot from the gas or whatever? That's what you said. Yes.
When you said, no, hang on a second. You think that I said that it couldn't be the case that they slouch and turn? You think I said that?
Correct.
Yes. That you think that my belief is
come off the gas.
And you think that I said that it's logically impossible or not reasonably likely? What I think is it's not reasonably likely to think at that distance, if that's what you mean by could. It's not reasonably likely to think at that distance that shooting the operator would have any tendency to
some amount of distance.
Oh, of course.
You think that shooting the operator could cause the vehicle to not go straight?
To not go straight?
Yeah, to continue to advance upon the officer.
Well, yeah. So I think that there are at some distances, perhaps, that it could go into a different direction. I'm not sure that the exact
specific,
no, but
give me a general idea of what you're saying.
I'm not going to be able to give you a percentage chance at a given distance. What is the likelihood that that they move? I'm saying at that distance, at that close distance.
Let me. No, wait. I engage in a bunch of hypotheticals for you, so I'm not asking for a percentage chance. When would it become reasonable in your estimation? When, for purely the safety of the officer, there's a distance that the shoot could increase his chance to not be harmed by the vehicle.
I think it's reasonable.
I
think it's so you're talking about a situation in which it's purely officer safety. So it's not the fight itself isn't the risk.
Sure.
So you're basically taking a situation in which the driver has narcolepsy and has fallen asleep or something like that, or I don't know, right? Is that's the kind of situation?
Someone where the officer knows that they're just trying to flee and not hit them. That's what you're claiming Renee Good was, that a reasonable officer. By the way, all of this is moot because you need to first win that a reasonable officer.
Wait a second.
Never suspected.
Wait a second.
Wait,
I think you realize what's happening. I think you realize what's happening. So you're talking about a situation in which a reasonable officer wouldn't think that they're trying to run him over, right?
That they think the person's just trying to flee them.
And they're not trying to run him over, and their flight doesn't cause an unreasonable.
The car is about to hit them.
Okay.
So
they suspect the car's about to hit them.
At what distance would you say it would be reasonable for the officer to think that deploying his weapon could cause the car to move so that it wouldn't run him over?
I have no idea. But I know whatever it is. Whatever it is. So you're talking about a situation in which you have a good reason to believe they're going to hit you at some distance, and that they're either unaware that you're there, they're not trying to hit you, or they're not practically certain that they will hit you, right?
You would have to, in order to make this an analogous situation, it would have to be that the officer, for whatever reason, has determined it would not be reasonable to think they're attempting to hit him. They're just trying to flee.
Right. So
I think's a burden that you can't meet.
In that circumstance, I don't think that it's. So you're talking about a situation in which there's a distance, and I think it's a total crapshoot, Rob. I think it's a total crapshoot. Who the fuck knows, right? She could slam on the accelerator, she could turn right or left, and that's the reason why the policy is what it is because I don't know that there's any reason to believe it increases your chance of anything.
But we just got here because of the policy. You acknowledge that the policy allows for the shooting, even if you don't think the intent is you. That there is
no. I said that by its terms, it doesn't use like intent in the terms of it, but it says that when there's no other reasonable. That there can't be any other reasonable thing to do. That it must be the only reasonable choice. That's what the policy says. And so
I don't. Can you show me that? That's not how you suggested that it said.
That is what I used. That is what I said. And you asked about whether
you got the words in front of me.
Okay, let's do it. UHS policy, vehicle shooting.
I'll look it up as well, but I don't know that I'll be able to find it. I'm reading that follows. This is AI, so it could be total bullshit. So I'm going to look for the policy, but you tell me if this sounds. Deadly force is authorized only when an officer has a reasonable belief that the subject poses an imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury to the officer or others. Does that sound like the language?
Yeah. Well, no, it's more specific than that.
Okay. Oh, it's fair.
Okay, here it is. So this is.
Can you send it in the Discord just so
Yeah.
I can bring it up? Okay.
Well, let me do the latest one.
And you're going to say it doesn't say reasonable. It's going to say the only possibility. I find that heavily suspicious, but
Sorry. What'd you say?
your claim is it says that the officer's allowed to do that when it is the only thing they could do.
When there's no other objectively reasonable means of defense exist, appear to exist, which include moving out of the path of the vehicle. So here we go.
Okay.
So let me just get I'm going to control F it. So because this is from a website that I trust, but I want to get the actual official policy.
Yeah, of course. I'm not shitting on the source or anything.
Discharging vehicles. Oh, policy 2.
All right. I will put this on screen. I think this is what you're looking for. I can't because I can't screen share the audio for this, but this is what, if I go to, I'll put the link I'm looking at for the DHS, and then I'm on page 7. It's 11 pages, so I'll put that. And I got discharge of firearms under lethal force, general guidelines, section 2, moving vehicles, vessels, aircraft, or other conveyances. Quote, in section A, DHS LEO are prohibited from discharging firearms at the operator of a moving vehicle, vessel, aircraft, or other conveyance unless the use of deadly force against the operator is justified under the standards articulated elsewhere in the policy. Before using deadly force under these circumstances, the LEO must take into consideration the hazard that may be posed to law enforcement and innocent dies standards of conveyance. Firearms shall not be discharged solely as a warning or a signal to solely disable moving vehicles, aircrafts, etc. All right. So section 9. Let's see what it says.
There's something else.
So then under the footnote under section 9 says, here a distinction is drawn between firing at the operator, targeting the operator with intent to cause serious physical injury or death, and firing at a moving vehicle or other conveyance solely as a warning. Okay. So let's see.
So look at subsection C. It says firearms shall not be discharged solely to. Oh, you might have just read this. Solely to disable moving vehicles, vessels, aircraft, or other conveyance.
Well, to disable, right?
So, in the context, there's some other policy that says when unless there's no other reasonable means. I don't know where it is right now, but the presumption is against shooting at vehicles, and I think that should give you some intuition. That
I think that. Well, yes, of course, right? We don't want officers just shooting at vehicles, but I think you give the game away when you said earlier, I don't know, it's a crapshoot. Now, this would imply that a reasonable person could see, right? And if it's a crapshoot, and at some distance, at
X distance, right? At distance, like
but
100 feet or whatever.
Right. So I think that it's reasonable without you providing any evidence. It's reasonable at a slow acceleration as someone's just accelerating, just hitting you, that shooting them could cause them to veer, for their foot to slip off the gas, etc. You've already acknowledged that yes, it's possible at some distance.
Is there no?
And I don't see. Let me finish real quick. I don't see where you have any evidence whatsoever that would suggest that it wouldn't be possible or even probable at a short distance to cause a change in direction.
No. Hang on a second. The presumption, do you think that the presumption is you're able to use deadly force in those contexts where we wouldn't have to have a good reason to think that it would have a tendency to reduce the threat? A reasonable officer?
No, I think that I've already given.
That if I can't produce, the specific, analysis at that distance because, it hasn't been run at that specific distance, that absent that, there's no burden for the reasonable officer before using deadly force. You can say, well, I don't know what the odds are. Might as well roll the dice. That can't be the presumption.
No,
there,
I
Rob.
think that I think that in a split second, the presumption would be this: if it is true that at some distance that shooting the vehicle that's about to run you over and cause serious harm can cause that to not occur, that we would say that in this split second that a reasonable officer can make that decision. And by the way, I just want to say, if you want to move on to the other thing, I'm fine. I can stay on this all night. I don't give a shit. But I just want to say, this gets to the other part, right? Which is like,
wait a second. So hang on a second. At the distance, let's just talk in terms of physics and not in terms of reasonable officer for a second. At the distance that actually occurred with Renee Good, do you, Rob, have a reasonable belief that shooting Renee Good at that speed has, and again, put aside the intent that she's trying to run him over, okay, just for now, that it would reduce the risk of serious bodily injury to the agent?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I think that
virtue
shooting
of
someone
what?
could have an immediate effect of them.
Good? No. A good, like, hang on.
I think that's reasonable to assume that a person that
Why?
you shot will change direction while driving.
Why is that reasonable to assume? In virtue of what?
In virtue of human nature and what I know. How long do you think? Give me the time frame you would think in your mind that you think, right, that it would take once you're shot for you to change. Like, let's say you're driving straight. Forget about why, but you're driving straight and you intend to keep driving straight, and all of a sudden a bullet hits you. Give me the reaction time when you think you would reasonably change direction of the wheel.
I don't know that. I wouldn't presume that you would. I'd presume that someone who's like shot in the head.
Oh my goodness. I almost guarantee you would.
In virtue of what?
You think you'd be able to continue to hold the wheel at the same direction as you're shot?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that there's an intuition that the car would change direction such that
if your hands come off the wheel, do you think there's a chance that the car would change direction?
I think that there's definitely a chance that the car can change direction. I just don't have.
So
I don't have an intuition.
There's a chance that your hands come off the wheel.
I don't have. Wait, a chance that the hands come off the wheel. I don't know that the intuition is that it won't keep going straight for a while, that it will turn to the left over him, that it won't turn to the right over him. So like your whole thing is like, well, he might change the direction of the wheel. The car's like within a foot of him. How is it going to meaningfully? How would a reasonable officer think this is gonna help me? This is gonna really help me. I have a reasonable belief it's gonna help me.
If it was 60 mile an hour and it was a foot of him, that would be one thing. But it's literally just beginning. It's going like 1 to 2 mile an hour, which means that the short distance could still mean, like, even at that point, if you're hit, if it continues to go straight over you, it could kill you. But if it veers off to one side or the other, you would have a far more reasonable chance of not.
Yeah, but why do you think it would do that?
Because when people get shot, they change the direction that what they're going. In fact, it takes about, I don't know, I'm just cursory looking at this, less than half a second to affect your central nervous system and you to lose motor functions on some shots. So the idea that if her intent was, let's say her intent wasn't to hit him, but she intended to keep going in the direction she was, and he thought that that direction would kill him or cause severe harm, shooting would probably have a good chance of changing that direction. You might say, well, she may have changed the direction in the opposite way to hurt him more. Maybe, and yet a reasonable officer would still say.
Then help me out with this use of force policy then. Explain that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
what we just read?
Why did they make this?
Well, because they don't like the implication is when they're talking about don't disable vehicles and stuff, it's like, the old like Charles Bronson shit, like Death Wish. You see a car, a bank robber going, you come out and you're trying to shoot at the tires and shit. No, you don't do that. Right. But if the car is barreling right at you, yes, you have a reasonable fear for your life as it's a deadly weapon. And by the way, there have been cases where this has been ruled. There are, I think I was reading some 30 to 40 officer involved shootings on vehicles coming at them. And almost never is there cases where the officer is.
Wait, because those cases, there's a reasonable belief the officer has that the driver is trying to hit him.
Oh, that's not true.
Or for example, is like fleeing a murder, or they're doing a fucking high speed chase. Those are those cases.
But that again cuts against your argument. Why do you think there's almost always a reasonable belief that they intended to hit him? My guess would be most criminals don't give a shit if they hit the cop or not. They're just trying to get away.
Well, hang on a second. So I assume that an officer, right? It's like an officer from a reasonable perspective. I'm not this person who thinks that he needs to think that her conscious object is a particular thing. It's whether or not the driver, from the perspective of the officer, perceives that she's either trying to run him over or is practically certain that she will run him over. But of course, that's not present in this case, right?
I disagree. I think that it is present. I think it's present to the level that probably many of those other cases that are ruled legitimate shootings are, which is the officer. My guess would be that most of the time, criminals, even bank robbers and shit, aren't intentionally trying to run over officers. They're just trying to get away, but they're willing to drive through the officer if that increases their chance of escape. And in those cases, when the officer fires, that we say that that's legit. Your argument here is, in this split-second decision, he should have absolutely known there was no reasonable chance she was intending to run him over. And beyond that, even if he did reach that conclusion, that if the vehicle would have ran him over, which he had reason to suspect, I think we both agree with that him shooting would still be unjustified because it wouldn't increase his chance.
I don't think an objectively reasonable officer would be like, I'm going to shoot here because it might go in a random direction. Like, there's people to the right, there's people to the left.
That's a different question.
Come on.
That's a different question than what I just
That's
said.
kind of what you just entailed, though. You're like, I'm going to shoot.
No.
Put aside the intent thing, because we could be on that all day. I don't think a reasonable officer. No, because I don't think a reasonable officer watching a woman turn the wheel to the right after performing an obvious K-turn thinks that she is attempting to strike him, or is practically certain that she will strike him. I don't think that a reasonable officer perceives that.
That we can't even tell that this is. I know that. Do you know for a fact the vehicle didn't hit him?
No.
Okay, and
I think the most likely thing is that he put his hand on the vehicle and shot. But again, the hitting of it isn't relevant to me. It's not. It's a red herring. Yeah, go for it.
You got to give me a chance to get my thought out. So the fact that it was that close, that it looks like she did hit him, you being like a reasonable officer would have known that she wasn't going to hit him. The hit is a
red herring, Rob. The hit doesn't matter.
Let me finish. Because he saw her turning the wheel is absurd. Because even if he saw her turning the wheel, he could have still expected that the vehicle was going to hit him. Because it did. Or it very likely did.
No, I think it very likely did not hit him, to be clear about where I stand on that. But the hit is a red herring. The hit is a red herring. You have to agree with that. The hit is a red herring. Whether it hit him or not. Because if you knew for a fact it didn't hit him, that wouldn't change anything for you.
But here's why.
Correct.
The fact that it either hit him or
can you answer that? It wouldn't change anything for you.
I am answering it right now. The fact that it hit him or came so close to hitting him that we can't tell ruins your defense of he saw her turning the wheel, therefore knew he wouldn't be hit. That's not true, as the evidence suggests. You're seeking to speak into what a reasonable officer would find, and I'm saying the evidence shows that a reasonable officer would have thought the car could hit him because it probably did or came within centimeters. So a reasonable officer would have said, oh, she's clearly, in a half a second, a reasonable officer going, oh, I see she's turning the wheel, and I've calculated that this will narrowly miss me. No. A reasonable officer would not have came to that conclusion.
The intent isn't relevant for the purpose of whether or not it will hit him or will make contact. It's about whether or not she represents a risk of serious bodily injury or death, such that he is justified in shooting. Because at that distance, a shot isn't going to have any tendency, in my opinion, to eliminate the threat unless she has the mental states that we're talking about, in which she is, willing to run people over or wanting to run people over. And someone
I just want to say that I think that if you, God help you or anyone else that ever finds himself in this situation. Again, I'll just go back to this. We can talk about this all night if you want. As long as
I'd rather move on.
I'm going to sum it up real quick, and then you could have the last word in this, and we go to the other shooting if you want. But the idea, every single one of you listening, whether you agree with Pisco or me, if you were in this situation where you're saying stop the car, or law enforcement, let's say you're not law enforcement, but you're standing next to law enforcement saying it, and all of a sudden someone starts to run over you. And for you to be like, I know that there's no intent to run me over, and I also know that if I discharged a weapon here, it would have almost no chance of saving my life. It's absurd.
Wait. Do you think he thought it was a good chance that it would save his life?
Yes, I think he shot it would.
I don't think a reasonable officer would.
I disagree.
Okay. All right.
And the fact that you could call this murder, I think it's a clear-cut case of self-defense. I don't think that a person could say that it wouldn't be reasonable for him to know that she wasn't trying to run him over.
No. It's not about knowledge. It's about what a reasonable officer would think, given the circumstances.
Why would a reasonable officer not think she was intending to run him over?
Because he's looking at her. He's aiming his sights at her. A reasonable officer would perceive her movements.
He was not aiming his sights at her, as you've already acknowledged.
Looking at her. The eye line is fixed on her. A reasonable officer would visually perceive her hand motions. He's looking for threats.
And
he's
yet
doing
the hand motions led to the car most likely hitting him or coming close to him.
Oh my God. Hang on. So can we just be clear about something? I'm trying to give you my rationale for why I think that he wouldn't be under a reasonable apprehension that she's trying to hit him. And a huge part of that is the spinning of the wheel in the direction opposite to where the officer is. That is some evidence. You agree? It's some evidence that she's not trying to hit him, correct? That a reasonable officer would perceive?
I don't know that he perceived that she was spinning the wheel in that direction.
If he did,
potentially against him.
If he did,
intentionally, no, I would say that could prove
you won't
that
even grant
she
that?
was possibly. Well, here's why. She could still be trying to intentionally hit him, but doing it in a way that would not incapacitate the vehicle as much, correct?
Wait, say that one more time. I didn't fully.
She could still be trying to intentionally hit him, but doing so in a way that wouldn't incapacitate the vehicle as much, correct?
But what do you mean by could? Reasonably likely to?
Like, for example, if the center of the car hits him, it's likely that will drag the body underneath and cause the vehicle to be more disabled than if she just clips him with the tire, correct?
If she hits him with the center of the vehicle, I presume it would do more damage, I guess. That's just my
Would it possibly disable the vehicle more?
I'm doing what? Hitting him?
Correct.
I'm not sure.
If she ran over him with him at the center of the vehicle as opposed to clipping him with the corner of the car.
My intuition is it would do more damage, but I'm not sure.
Correct.
The car.
So
but what does that have to do with anything?
To hit him, because it could be that she intended to hit him, but wanted to do so with the tire so that she could hit and evade at the same time.
Wait, but what would that... Do you think that's what a reasonable officer
chance
would...
of escaping while also...
No,
I think that I think a reasonable officer would have thought my life's in danger and he's justified in firing a weapon, right?
No, let's not zoom out. Let's not zoom out. Wait, let's not zoom out.
I'm answering. Secondly, yes, I think it would be reasonable for it to intuit that someone that's advancing on in that moment, even if you see in the literally like 1/10 of a second of her going like this, when he saw that car accelerating, when she knew he was in front of him, to the fact where the vehicle was likely to hit him, that a reasonable officer would think she's trying to fucking hit me. Yes.
Wait. I don't want to zoom out. I don't want to zoom out. I want to zoom in. So,
okay.
Is the fact that she's turning to the right, is that stronger evidence that she wasn't trying to hit him?
Not in the moment, no. I disagree. I think that would to expect an officer to process that in a millisecond when all he's going to be thinking is, I'm in front of a car that's accelerating towards me, is unreasonable. To say in that millisecond, he should have saw that her hands were slightly turning to the right. Then he should have made the decision that
slightly turning to the right. Slightly turning to the right.
Let me finish. Okay, heavily turning to the right. Right. One, that he should have saw that she was turning to the right, and that meant that she was attempting to avoid him. Second, that this meant that he would not be, or that even if he was still likely to be hit by the car, that discharging the firearm would not increase his chances of causing the momentum to shift, which would be able to increase the chance of him living. I think that is absurd and an unreasonable standard, and I think you know it.
No, I don't think it's unreasonable at all to say. I mean, you won't even grant that her turning to the right would
You won't even grant that.
Wait. Can I finish it?
Could have changed a change of direction.
I literally did not say that. What I said, at that distance, I don't think that it's reasonably at that distance.
Show me the signs. You acknowledge that I can't.
At that distance, given that the car's already in motion, I don't have a reason to believe that there's a good chance that it will wildly change direction, such that it would render him in a safer state. I don't have a basis to believe that.
Prove it.
What? Wait. Prove what? That I don't have a basis to believe that?
Yes or no? Just yes or no? Yes or no? Have you acknowledged that at some distances, shooting a person that's driving could cause them to change direction?
Could cause. By could you mean logically could?
Yes or no?
But by could do you mean it's possible?
Yes or no, please.
But I'm trying to clarify the question.
Yes, I'm saying that reasonably a person could intuit that shooting a person driving a car could cause them to change direction.
By could, do you mean it's possible?
I said, is it reasonable to assume that shooting a person driving could cause them to change direction?
I'm not sure that that's a reasonable belief.
Okay. And then people should take that as you being bad faith. All science would show that that is not the case. That the chances of someone changing direction while they're driving, if they're shot, is very high. In fact, it's probably more likely than not. And you saying that you not only do you not think you think it's not even reasonable.
No, I'm not sure. I was just saying I'm not sure. I don't have that intuition that at a given distance there's a tendency to change direction.
We're not talking about a given. Again, notice how you changed the question.
No, what's the question then?
What do you mean at a given distance?
No,
at some
which
point,
distance?
If someone shoots a person driving a car, is it reasonable to assume the direction of the car will change?
I'm not sure.
Well, there you have it. So,
in some respect,
yeah, I think that it's clearly this. I mean, I don't know what to say. Then I'll say the same. I'm not sure that someone changing directions or turning the steering wheel. I'm not sure. That'll be my answer as well.
Hang on a second. So, it's not my intuition that shooting someone in a vehicle will eventually cause the vehicle to change direction.
Reasonably, could it cause it to change direction? Could a reasonable person think it would change direction?
Yeah, I mean, it's a reasonable. It's possible that someone could think that the car would change direction, but again, I don't know that in the case that we're talking about, it would bear on that because it's so close. The distance is very close.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Show me your evidence. Once you acknowledge that it's possible, show me the evidence that distance wouldn't be possible then.
Wait a second. So at that distance, the car's already in motion, and any change in direction isn't going to bear on, or to the extent that it exists, I don't think there's a feeling that a reasonable officer would have that it would change such that it would improve his the risk to him as an individual.
By the way, show me the video. Where's the video that shows that she clearly was turning the wheel away from him? If that doesn't exist, then you acknowledge that your entire argument falls apart, correct?
No, I don't think it falls apart because we know that she was turning
the wheel.
But there is video. The video from the officer. The video from the officer shows it. Video from the officer shows it.
When you said it was a red herring, whether or not the car actually hit him, because I would think the same either way. You would say that this is a red herring about turning the wheel as well.
No,
right?
No.
Oh,
no.
So can you explain to me why the vehicle actually hitting him would be a red herring? Because I would think that either way. But you saying that had she not turned the wheel.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood your question. So are you asking whether or not there exists video of her turning, whether it would change the turning rationale?
Correct. If there is no video of her turning the wheel away from him,
be very specific with your question, Rob. Wait. Just because there's no video of her spinning the wheel, no, because I would still assume that he saw her spin the wheel given the other angle. But if you're saying, did she in fact not turn the wheel?
Given what angle?
We see the tires turn from the other angle before we had the officer video. We knew the car was turning. Agreed?
No, we could see that she accelerated while the tires.
Come on, wait, sorry, hang on, I can't hear you. One second, I can't hear you.
We could see that
I can't hear you. 1 second. Okay, go ahead.
We could see that she accelerated while the tire was still facing him.
No, but the car was turning, correct? Even in the other video, right?
She did a turn.
Oh my God. No, the wheels were going to the right even before we had the officer video, correct?
I don't know. What I remember from this is the wheels turned as she backed up, so the officer wasn't directly in front of her, but the way the wheels were turned when she backed up pointed him directly.
I understand. At some point, the wheels.
Then she started accelerating towards him while the wheels were still pointing at him.
At any point, do you think the wheels are turning to the right?
Let me finish. At that point, when the acceleration comes, the wheel isn't turning. It is literally facing him as the acceleration starts.
That's not what I'm asking.
Let me ask you. If you're asking me after that acceleration starts, does the wheel turn a little? I don't know.
How would the wheels go from to the left to straight and then to the right? She's turning the wheel to do that, right? There's no way to effectuate that other than turning the wheel.
Listen, if I do this, if I turn the wheel this way and back up and then advance and my tires are still painted that way, I didn't have to turn the wheel. Now, if your argument, I'll say for the sake of argument, let's concede, right? That, okay, what you acknowledge that this happened is this a scenario. She backs up. He's then in line with the car. She accelerates towards him. She's a short distance away from accelerates toward while the wheels are pointed directly at him. But as she's doing that, this is your contention, she's turning.
She's turning the wheel.
That's your contention?
No, I'm trying to address your question. Your question was...
I'm asking you, like...
She's turning the wheel. Yes, she's turning the wheel. She's turning the wheel. She's turning the wheel. She's turning the wheel. She's turning the wheel.
Step by step. She turned the wheel and backed up. Agreed?
Correct.
When she backed up, this put the officer more in center of her car, more in front of her car.
He walks in front of it, and she acts in such a way that he's more in the center of it. Yep.
Correct. So now he's more in the center. Then she starts to advance forward.
Correct. As she's turning the wheel.
As
she's turning the wheel. Yes.
Let me finish. At the point where she advances forward, is the tire aimed at the officer?
There's at one point in which it's aligned at the vehicle, but she's turning the wheel the whole time.
So, okay, so
she's turning the wheel the whole time, Rob.
Okay, so I'm going to play some clips here, and you're going to say the wheels were in constant motion from a right to left the entire time. There was no point with the
who said constant? Wait. Who said constant motion? Wait, what's this whole thing about constant motion? Wait, who said? Wait, no. Did I ever say the word constant motion? I said she's spinning. She's turning. She's turning the steering wheel. The steering wheel.
If there wasn't constant motion, then you've conceded my argument. There was a point where the wheels were facing straight and not turning, and acceleration occurred towards him.
So there's a conflation here. I'm not talking about the wheels of the car when I say she's constantly turning the steering wheel. That's what I mean. She's turning the steering wheel.
Okay, can you explain to me how the steering wheel turns without the car wheels turning?
No.
You're saying it was a defective device?
No. What I'm saying is, regardless of whether or not there's some tire slippage or whatever, when she's navigating and accelerating, she's turning the wheel to the right.
So show me the video of that, because your argument.
The officer video.
Let me. So your argument was this previously. It doesn't matter if we have a video of her turning the wheel, we can see from the tires. And now you're like, well, even if there's a point where the tires don't look like they're turning, I know she was turning the wheel and it might have been slippage.
No. We know that she's turning the wheel because the car is turning to the right as the officer is stepping to the side. We know she's turning, and we didn't need to have the officer video for that.
Was there a point where the acceleration started where the wheel was not turning?
A split second?
Oh,
I'm not sure.
Okay, so how long's the entire interaction?
It's a couple seconds, 2-3 seconds.
So there was a point where the car started
the shooting stuff, but before it's the entire encounter is TOC.
So there's a point. So there you go. So there's a point where the car was accelerated and she wasn't turning the wheel.
Yeah, well, yeah. If you do the Achilles paradox or whatever, if you put like if you divide, everything is a Sorty's paradox with you, Rob. Everything's a Sorty's paradox. But the question is whether or not there's a reasonable opportunity to perceive a difference in threat or the fact that she's turning the wheel. And the truth is she's turning the wheel the whole time when she put it in drive.
She's not, as you just acknowledged, that there's a time where she's accelerating where she's not turning the wheel.
Wait.
And so when does that happen? My argument. You just acknowledged it.
Wait. When did I acknowledge that that's the reality?
I mean, so now we're going back in time because you just said, was there a time where the acceleration started where the wheel wasn't turning?
When the acceleration started with the wheel wasn't turning, I'm not sure.
Correct.
I'm not sure.
I don't know what all I could ask you is, let me share a different screen.
So when the car is accelerating,
because I can't share two screens, right? Is what's going on, right? So I can't share it here as I'm talking to you. But yes, it seems as if my recollection was that when you looked at the tires, that there are still shots that show when you first see that she is not turning because she backs up at an angle and then advances straight and then starts to veer. But there is a point where it advances straight. That's the point where he's going to make the decision to draw his gun. So he, in that split second, sees the vehicle is directly facing me and going straight. Your argument is, in that moment, in literally milliseconds, he should have saw her start to turn.
When she starts to put it in drive, she's turning the wheel to the right. Okay. Hang on one second.
And I can't. God, I wish you were on StreamYard so I could show the video and we could look at it together.
You didn't give me the invite.
I'm sending you an invite.
I'm gonna run out of time, Rob. I know. I want to give you your opportunity
All right.
So we can do this.
We'll just move on. You can show your audience. I'll show my audience.
I might have a video right here. One sec.
happens during these critical 6 seconds.
By the way,
Here-
I suggested 45 minutes ago that you want to move on to the other
I know,
story.
I
You
know,
said
I know.
no. So don't act like it's just
no,
me.
I know.
And I haven't even got to talk about the shit I want.
I know.
Which is, I think, more important.
We'll be quick. Just give me a second to show the video real quick.
Critical
You
6
can
seconds.
share it on Discord here, or what do you do?
Yeah, I can share it on Discord. One sec. Just let me do it. Share.
Well, we're not doing a video call, so I don't know if it works.
It should share. Yeah, it
fuck
should
it.
share. One sec.
Okay.
And I'll share it to the audience. One sec. Badu. I think this will work. You should be able to see it, right?
Okay, one sec. Let me.
I think it shows every
so
fucking
my audience
angle.
will be able to see. Okay.
Here, the agent's cell phone footage shows he's moving directly in front of the SUV, as it's reversing and rotating towards him, initiating a 3-point
Pause.
turn.
So, can you pause it for a second?
Hmm?
Okay, he might be moving towards the direction of the SUV, but she's centering it by her backing up. She's moving as well, correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
Apparently,
fair enough. Keep
to
going.
leave. Law enforcement officers are trained to avoid doing this because it
You don't doubt that, right?
puts them in danger and often leads to
It's
the use
irrelevant.
of force against drivers.
Well, it could be relevant to Officer Great Hazard, correct?
No, it's irrelevant in the case what we're talking about right now, and I'm not trying to get into another 40-minute
Okay.
Cell
conversation.
phone is focused squarely on Miss Good. She looks down, shifts into drive, and begins turning to the right.
That's pretty instantaneous, don't you say?
Keep going.
Right.
Keep going.
That's pretty instantaneous, Rob, right?
Just
away
wait.
from the
Keep
agent.
going.
Cut to this high angle and zoom in.
So it
We
looks
can
like
make
she's
out-
turning there as she's advancing forward. I
Yeah.
totally concede.
The
Keep
agent's
going.
body
Keep going.
and his arm filming. We can also see at the same time he's beginning to lift his other arm. On these cameras, we can see what's happening around Agent Ross. The other agent is yelling orders and reaching into Miss Good's SUV. Her front
The
tire
turning right there.
spins-
Pause. That wheel's turning towards him.
From what
Her
angle?
turning right is putting her more in line with him. Yes.
Yes, but she's turning. That's because the wheels are to the left before because she did a turn.
Right.
No, but
But
she's
he's-
but she's turning
Back
to
it
the
up
right.
just a little. Back it up just a little.
is yelling orders and
Like, look at the tires right there.
Now, if
she's
just-
doing a
if
K
she
turn.
but listen, if she accelerates right there, she's going to miss him to the left, right? So from his perspective, he's not knowing, oh, she's doing a K turn. She's literally turning the wheel towards him.
reaching
Yeah, but she wouldn't need to do this, Rob, if she wanted to run him over. She wouldn't
And
need
how's
to.
he supposed to know that in the
No,
heat of the moment? He sees it.
If
Yes,
she
sir.
wants to run him
Just
over, she
real quick,
wait,
real quick.
Rob. If
Real quick.
she wants to run him over, she can just do that with the car. She doesn't need to execute a K turn.
Real quick, would you, at this point, is she turning the wheel towards him?
What do you mean towards him? She's turning the wheel to the right.
Is she turning the wheel so that the car is more in line with him?
Yes, by virtue of executing the K turn, yes.
Okay,
But
so
she's
but how is
continuing.
he-
She's continuing.
Let me finish. So then, from his perspective, oh fuck, she's now aiming the car right at me. You're saying that he should have known she was just doing a K turn to avoid him. How would he know at this point? In fact, quite to the opposite of what you were suggesting. You said that the rationale would be he should have saw her turning and knew that that meant she was going to miss him. In this instance, we see that the turning of the wheel is actually making the wheels more in line to hit him. Let me ask you the question a different way. If she did want, let me ask you the question. If she did, let's assume she did want to run him over. At this point, wouldn't she be steering in the exact same direction that she is?
Well, she wouldn't have done the backup in the first place. I mean, she would be turning.
Well, that's not true.
She would be turning the wheel presumably and stopping, but she's not stopping the wheels right there. You're just like taking a motion. Like she's continuing to turn to the right.
At this point, she's continuing to turn to the right, which is continuing to put him in harm's way. Now, advance the. So my point is, like your argument that she wouldn't have backed up is nonsense. If you're trying to run over someone, you may back up and then accelerate into them. Nonetheless, we can see right now at this point to the officer, it would reasonably look like she's steering right into him. Now let's keep going.
Okay.
Her front tire spins as she continues turning right.
Look, the car hasn't even advanced yet.
Agent Ross.
Okay, but she's trying to advance forward. So at this point,
but she's
he would see
turning
that
to the
tires
right the whole time.
towards him. She's turning towards him.
But continue.
And the tire spins, so he sees at this point that she's accelerating towards him. Now let's see if she keeps spinning. Go ahead. Right now, he's right in line to be hit.
Feet away from Miss Good's SUV. He does not appear to move out of the way. As the SUV rolls forward, the agent unholsters his firearm.
Right there. Now pause. Did you see it was like literally a thousandth of a second that the wheel started to turning? Right now, is that tire in line with him?
It's turning to the right. I think if he doesn't move,
is it in line with him right now?
When you say in line, do you mean you draw a line between him and
correct? If she
the wheel?
Immediately, if it was humanly possible for her to drop the wheel right now and she advanced forward, would it run over him?
Unclear. I think it probably would. But I think that but she's continuing to turn. No, she's turning to the right the whole time. You can ignore that.
I'm not ignoring it.
Okay.
The initial turn to the right, from his perspective, is putting him more in line with the vehicle. Right at the time he draws his gun, this is what he would have saw: this woman back up. And if she would have just advanced forward from how she backed up, it would have went to the left of him. She turns the wheel directly towards him. He sees it start to accelerate.
And continues to turn to the right.
But at the time, now listen, at the time he drew his gun right now, it still looks like she's steering into him.
No,
now,
because she's continuing to turn.
It doesn't matter. Right now, if you just acknowledge if she would have dropped the wheel, this would run him over. So to him, it looks like this. She was facing away from me and she turned and accelerated. She's turning right towards me. He draws his gun as he's seeing that. Now, your argument is from this point, he should rationally be able to see that she's going to continue that turn and miss him.
Well, I think that a rational officer in his position would see her continue to turn to the right, would see that the car is to the stop. It's trivially easy to step to the side. And,
if she stopped turning to the
it.
right here, would a rational officer think that she was going to run him over?
If she stopped right there and and it was clear that she's stopping right there, I think that you'd have more indicia. I'm not sure. It would. I think if once she accelerates, then yeah.
She is at the point she accelerated.
But that's assuming she stops turning the wheel to the right, which she doesn't.
At the point she accelerated, she had turned the vehicle towards him. At this point,
let's keep watching. I don't want to cuck you out of your time.
We could keep going, but I just want to say right here, right? I just want to say your argument is now at this point it would be justified, but in the remaining millisecond that you see it became unjustified because he should have known she was still turning.
Wait! Not at the point in which she's not accelerating, right?
She is accelerating. The tire skipped. It rewinded a little. She's already started to go forward here.
It goes forward a little bit, but she's turning to the right, man. I mean, come on.
Forward.
Yes,
the agent unholsters his firearm.
No, away from him.
We see in his cell phone video
all right, this is the cell phone video.
At this moment, the camera drifting off to the left. The agent
is no longer focused
on filming.
Straight at him.
At this point in the cell phone video where it first looks and sounds like the agent's getting knocked violently.
Let's watch it, okay?
On the other camera, we can see what's happening. Here is Agent Ross aiming his gun at Miss Good. And here is his outstretched arm leaning toward her vehicle, which is barely visible behind the Tahoe. His phone, which is gripped in his left hand, flips over when the agent's hand lands on the front of the vehicle.
This is what you hear as the quote-unquote hit.
There's an audible thud when it hits.
None of this changes anything we just
I don't know. I'm just
towards the sky.
So, do you want to keep going with this? We can. I think that
wait. Can we just finish it and then we'll give our final thoughts on that?
That's fine. You could do your New York Times video that you think debunks it. That's fine.
Knocked over, we can see that's not the case from the other angle, which shows he's standing with his hand near the headlight.
His legs are
his torso and legs away from the vehicle. In the cell phone footage, the agent's face flashes on screen, then it goes black. The other angle shows us why. We can see the agent's foot sliding, his hand bracing against the SUV, and his arm getting pressed into his chest. It is impossible to determine if this is happening because of the SUV's movement.
Okay, I know we're at a weird angle here, right? The direction that the wheels are turned right now, towards the officer where he's at or away?
So at this angle, how do you see the tire? I don't really see it.
Well, don't you think that's important? Let's see what happens.
Movement or the icy asphalt, or more likely, both. And what's very unclear because of the limited quality and availability of footage is whether
It doesn't.
Looks like it's
that
going
looks like his
towards him.
hand, bro. That looks like his fucking hand right there.
No. That's not what I'm asking.
Oh.
Is the car going straight? Is it turning left or is it turning right?
It's turning relative to itself to the right.
So towards this gray truck.
Well, yeah, more. Yes, it's initiating a turn to the right.
Okay, let's. That's what I'm asking because you're acknowledging
back.
she has the wheels turned. That's all I'm asking. Go ahead.
This moment is when Agent Ross fires. We see the other agent pull back from the SUV. Both of them stumble, apparently slipping on the ice. This is also the moment many have said looks like Agent Ross getting run over. And it does when watched at full speed.
Do you think?
But looking more closely,
you acknowledge he's at least touching the car, right?
Yeah, I think you touched the car.
We can see in multiple angles that there's a visible gap between the vehicle and his legs, indicating his feet are positioned outside the SUV's path.
So what we have is the time he drew his gun and started shooting, that she was turning the wheel towards him and advancing forward.
We see
she proceeded to turn the wheel further that would have put him out, but he had no way of knowing what she would continue doing. He also had about I know they've grotesquely slowed this down. Do you have the actual footage so we could get the actual time? Or do you have an estimate of what the time was? It's all less than a second from when he draws his gun to when he fires, right?
So it would depend what interval. Let's just finish the video. I don't want to cook your time, and I want to address the actual other murder.
He's still standing, continuing to maintain his.
We can organize a longer conversation where you want to show me what you want to show me.
I'll just say I think that it's clear that she was steering the tire at the time he drew the gun. She had turned towards him, right, and the tires were facing him when she accelerated. That's when he drew his gun.
Okay, but I think you keep ignoring the fact that she's continuing to turn the wheel to the right, and that's what I'm saying is the intent. It
doesn't matter. But listen, how would he know she would continue to go to the right? Well, at some point, if he thought he was about to be ran over, he's legitimately allowed to draw his gun and fire. Correct?
Wait. If he thinks that they're intentionally trying to run him over,
if he thinks he's going to be ran over.
Well, yeah. If he thinks he's going to be that she is trying to run him over with her car, I think that he's within his rights to shoot. Barring the officer created exception doctrine, whatever.
At the time he draws his gun, right, you can see that he was outside the path of the vehicle and she turned the wheels to be in line with where he was and then advanced. When he drew his gun, that was the case. That's probably when he made the decision to fire. Saying, but he should have realized in the milliseconds later she was continuing to turn those wheels.
Wait. So you think that he made the decision to fire at the time where she began to press on the accelerator, and it would be reasonable at that time?
Correct.
Okay, and you think it would be unreasonable to think that in the next second and a half to realize that the threat at that point was over.
Phone
for the other shots.
I think at that point it's unreasonable once he saw that she was at shit.
But it's clear that she after he made the quote unquote decision to shoot, he perceived her turning, even if he made the decision before he perceived her continuing to turn or whatever you're saying. I don't know, man. I think that you are trying to atomize this more than people accuse lefties and liberals of doing. You're trying to be subdividing even beyond what lefties are doing. Hello?
Hey. I'll be right back. My computer crashed.
Oh, shit.
Just give me a second. Fucking computer. It's clear. Your entire rationale she was turning the wheel is nonsensical because she was...
It's not just that. It's the fact that she's backing up and performing a K-turn, and she wouldn't need to do that if she wanted to hit him. If she wanted to hit him, she would just drive forward.
How would he know that it's a K-turn?
Because a reasonable officer would have seen individuals on the street make such a maneuver thousands of times.
No, but that's irrelevant. If she wasn't doing a K-turn and was instead driving directly at him, it would have looked the exact same at the time that he drew the gun.
No, I'm saying it's
the exact same motion.
She would just drive. If at the time she's doing the back, why is she backing up? Why would a reasonable think she's backing up?
Because if you're trying to run someone over, you get a little distance to advance towards them. I would say almost all circumstance where someone's touching a vehicle and someone tries to run them over, they back up and then accelerate forward. You don't think that would be the case?
I don't think that in all cases that would happen, and I think that would really you'd really have to think that she was like trying to kill you then and not trying to escape.
But that's exactly what it would look like in that scenario.
I'm not sure that it would look like that, where she's like where instead of backing up straight, she's backing up to give her a better angle to turn to the right.
1 second.
Anyway, can we move
Before
on?
my computer shits the bed. All right, let's move on. Now,
okay.
I want at least a half hour to talk about what I want.
Yeah,
so
no, yes.
The other thing, if you,
so
I think that you did. I think the evidence heavily favors.
I couldn't disagree. I couldn't disagree more. But
I'm sure. But
I know. On this recent thing, I think that you think the use of force is unreasonable under the Fourth Amendment.
I don't know. Like, I'll be honest with you. This is going to sound like a cop-out, but it's just the truth. I don't know the specifics of the legal term of that. What I would say is this, that there would be what I would consider, and I assume the law allows for, that there are tragic accidents that happen that are unreasonable in a sense, but that are still not justified. For example, like an officer could negligently like be spinning his gun and drop it and it hits the ground and shoots and kills someone. I don't know that we say that he had the intent to murder someone, et cetera, but that's still he's
put aside the murder thing,
or
right?
he is liable.
Yeah. So let's just think about it in the context of like civil damages, right? If you were going to do a wrongful death suit against, assuming this were available as a civil action against either the officer themselves or against whatever, you would need to show that the use of force wasn't reasonable under the Fourth Amendment and use of force policies. Because if it is reasonable, under the Fourth Amendment, there's no liability.
Ironically reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
Sure. Like they like if it's a reasonable shoot, then yes.
Right. So a reasonable shoot you wouldn't be liable for it. It would just be an unfortunate incident that was legal to do.
Yeah. And so I don't know what the civil standard of that would be. I don't know. And my feeling is probably the most likely scenario here is there was a negligent discharge. If there had been an actual discharge, then it would have been reasonable for them to shoot. But if it wasn't, if it was one of the officer's guns, then that officer's mistake in that point led to, at that point, it was reasonable for them to shoot. But the unreasonable nature was that it was a mistake that the officer fired into the ground first.
Yeah, but there's no good reason to think that there was a negligent discharge.
Well, I don't know. It seems like that first shot, it seems different, right? I don't know, though. And that's what I'm saying. And there's a lot of people that are showing that.
Let's assume there's no.
Slide of the gun.
Yeah. But
so let's assume the answer is no then. Okay.
So if there was no negligent discharge, I think in order to think that there ought be civil liability, I think you have to say that it was an unreasonable, objective by the standards of use of force in the Fourth Amendment, that it was unreasonable.
I think that I don't know if that's true or not because I don't know exactly how the civil liability works. But my impression is this: that I could, if there's no negligent discharge, I could think that this is what happened, right? And this would be the most likely scenario other than the negligent discharge. That they heard someone yell gun, right? They saw him struggling. They didn't see that the officer removed the gun, right? And then, and the sense that he was struggling, they were afraid as they were backing up that he was reaching for the gun and discharged. And in that sense, I think that it probably is not reasonable that they shot him in that sense. And though I don't think it rises to the level of criminal murder or anything. And things like this happen a lot, and oftentimes officers aren't charged. Bring up
put aside the charging
videos
thing. There could be a bunch of reasons why you don't charge as a matter of policy, or because you don't think, okay, maybe you can prove it in a preponderance of evidence, but not beyond a reasonable doubt. There could be a lot, or maybe people aren't willing to testify, whatever. Like, there could be a bunch of reasons why these case is like not in fact brought. Putting aside whether or not the feds want to touch it with a 5-foot pole or anything. Like, I get that. You can say that, but like that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is the reasonability aspect of it. The justification applies both in the civil and criminal context. And if it's unreasonable as a matter of law, as a matter of Fourth Amendment law, putting aside the burdens, putting aside the jury determination, putting all that aside, in your mind, if you find it unreasonable, objectively, such that you think it's deserving of civil damages, I think we should get you that there's some criminal liability here, because.
Well, I disagree, and I think your own rationale in a previous discussion we had would show why. For example, what is the penalty? What is a penalty for treason? Or what is treason? Let's start with that.
Treason is levying war, giving aid or comfort to the enemies.
And the phrase of levying war is very expansive, right? And what it means.
No, I think it's very limited.
Okay. Okay.
I think
why don't
levying
you
war
explain
is.
a little what?
I think levying war is insurrection.
Okay. And what's insurrection?
Insurrection is an assemblage with a public purpose, using force or intimidation to resist the execution of a law of the United States in the context of American
you
treason.
acknowledge that
Wait,
there have been anti-ICE insurrections that
there have
occurred
been.
here, right?
Yeah, there have been. Yeah,
And according
That's a
to you,
form
that
of
would
treason.
all of those people committed treason, and
It's
a
a form of
possible
treason.
penalty for treason is the death penalty, correct?
it's a possible penalty. Yeah.
Okay, and yet you would say, nah, I don't know, I don't think they should be given the death penalty, correct?
Yeah, but that's about the penalty. That's not about whether there's liability.
Okay, so you would acknowledge then, I guess, in the sense that if you want to say, of course, all of these people have committed treason, right? But you don't recommend charging them. I guess in that same sense,
Rob,
I could say in that sense.
Yeah, you could just say that, like, I don't think that they should be, for a lot of jails, like, I don't think that he should be charged for whatever reason. I think that, like, okay, he should just be, like, fired or demoted, or he should have additional training. You can say whatever you want on that. Right now I'm being a little placid because I'm, like, kind of in, like, a calm mood, demeanor, whatever. I think it's disgusting, just to tell you, but, like, I'm just trying to, like, build a bridge with you and, like, be just calm, and I'm kind of in a nice calm mood right now. So I just want to be clear about the audience where I stand. I think it's
You might
gross
not be.
that he wouldn't be charged. I think it's fucking disgusting. But that is a logically consistent position. I'm just trying to say, like, if you think it's unreasonable, I think it's entailed that you think that there was a criminal violation, even if it doesn't rise to the mens rea of malice, because he's shooting him with practical certainty that death will result. And if it's unreasonable, it's by definition not justified under the legal test.
I don't know. There's different levels of the reasonability. It would be unreasonable that the initial shot, if there was a negligent discharge, or unreasonable that the initial person thought that he was reaching for the gun. But it is reasonable if you suspect they are reaching for the gun to eliminate the threat before they could shoot. So there are different levels of it. The initial decision to shoot may have been unreasonable, but the idea, and again, I don't know, like, the legal standard of the term reasonable. It's a tragic mistake. Do I think it's reasonable if someone has a gun on their hip and they also inside their holster have a lighter and they reach for the lighter and I think they're reaching for the gun and I defend myself? Is it reasonable that I thought they were reaching for the gun?
It could be. But I know
but
that.
Does it?
I'm assuming that you're granting that it's unreasonable. I'm assuming that you're granting it's unreasonable.
Right. Well, so what I'm saying is, like, so I don't know, right? So I would say in that situation, it was like I shouldn't have shot because it didn't seem that I was in an imminent threat, even though it looked like he was reaching for the gun, and it turned out I was mistaken. But was it reasonable for me to think he was going after the gun? Maybe. So I'm saying,
are you saying that you think that it could be reasonable for purposes of civil damages, but not for purposes of criminal liability?
I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying, in my opinion, I would think that there's different levels of what I, as an individual, say to the specifics of the law of, like, what would qualify as criminal versus civil. My gut feeling is what they'll say, that this was basically a tragic accident because either a negligent discharge or they thought that he was reaching for a firearm as he was resisting arrest, and that they shouldn't have shot, but that it was reasonable for them to think that he could have been reaching for.
So why would they be civilly
if he was
liable?
Because I think the standard is different. I don't think it would have to be beyond reasonable doubt. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, but
the standard civilly would be lower.
So that could be a reason not to charge them. But you actually do think it was unreasonable, such that they should.
I don't know.
Oh, you're not sure about that.
I'm telling you my gut. I'm telling you my gut feeling is I could see a case to say that it's unreasonable, and that my suspicion would be that it would lead to some sort of civil penalty.
Okay,
let's say that it was a negligent discharge. Is it reasonable for them to fire then?
Not that many shots. Not as many shots as actually occurred.
Well, I don't think you're going to be on solid legal ground there.
Oh,
like,
I think
what are officers instructed to do?
Yeah, until the threat is over, and so maybe it would justify some initial shots, but not when he's lying prone, hands visible, when the guy's backing up. I don't think that there would be much.
Usually, in my understanding, is the way these cases, like there's been cases I was looking at where 15 shots were fired at a person and they were fine with it, where 9 shots have been fired from a person and they were fine with it, like they didn't charge. Like, so the idea, like, I don't know. I think that's shakier ground for you.
Okay,
We'll
I'll do
see,
two.
guess.
I want to give you your full 30 minutes, and at some point I have to go, so I'm gonna cut off. We should have another longer conversation at some point with like a moderator or something, and we can get mad at each other and we can put on our real faces. And I know that you're gonna bring up the energy in the next part. The last 2 things I'll say on this is one, just know that like the Fourth Amendment standard. I'm just telling you, and you can ask Ryan about it if you don't believe the Fourth Amendment standard is going to be like the same. Like, and now I understand the burdens are different in a criminal context versus civil, but if you're granting that you think it's justified, like if that's what you actually feel, you could say something like, I think it's unjustified, but I don't think you could prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Like that's something you can say, right? Obviously that would justify one versus the other. But if you take the view that it was unjustified, from an objective perspective, if you have a strong view that it was unjustified, for example, I think you have to grant that there's some criminal liability that's possible here. Doesn't mean that you have to charge. Doesn't mean you think that they should charge or whatever. That's just one thing I'll let you know. And I'll give you the last word. We should debate it at some other time.
I mean, I think that for me, I think this is far more up in the air than the Renee Good shooting. I think that this one's sketchier. Now, that doesn't mean, like, even to the degree that I could think that this would lead to a criminal penalty, it does very little to impact what I think the policies of ICE should be as
I'm not
far
saying they
as
should.
the continued detention.
I would think
Right,
that you
but I'm just
you might
saying,
be a hypocrite if you did that.
right. Well, I've been consistent on the Bird, the Renee Good, and this shooting. I don't know that we could say the same with you.
Well, I'm not sure either.
Just saying.
But okay, I'm gonna give you till 2:30 because I know that's more than 30 minutes, but I had way more than 30 minutes. I do appreciate the time we spent on these 2 cases. I do think that we should like at some point like organize a longer conversation. I don't know if you're interested in Wick moderating about that conversation.
No, well, the guy that just called for criminality. No thanks.
All right, so hit me with the Democrat shit.
Talk to Wick.
Hit me with the hypocrisy
if you're friends
stuff.
with Wick, you should fucking tell him to stop saying that shit.
Well, I don't think he should say it. Yeah, no, I don't think he should say it. So for the audience, Wick said he's encouraging obstruction. Where the knowledge that
and
like
getting arrested
and like lying and stuff. I don't think that that's a good thing to say because like peaceful protest for me is like enough and it's like the gold standard and we don't want to give more excuses for like these and what we think are these crazed ICE officers to like shoot you and kill you. I don't think that that's good to say and so like I don't think Wick should say it. Now I want to be clear. I think it's First Amendment protected speech and I don't think that it is at all that anyone should be able to criminally prosecute Wick for saying that. You're allowed to, in abstract, support criminality, even explicitly. That is protected speech. But no, hit me with your thoughts there, Rob, on everything. Take your time. 2:30, I have to be out. It's a hard out, unfortunately.
Is it a crime to engage in an insurrection?
It is.
Okay, so if Wick is telling people to insurrect, isn't that a crime?
No, not if
Why
it not? Because in order, First Amendment protected speech is not engagement in insurrection.
Okay, did you and the Colorado court not both say that is partial proof that Trump engaged in an insurrection was his words?
Yes.
Okay, so then why wouldn't this be sufficient? Telling someone to insurrect.
Well, one, he didn't say
would
that.
not be engaging in an insurrection.
Well, he didn't advocate insurrection. That's number one.
Yes, he did.
And two, even if he did, it wouldn't be engagement in insurrection, even if he explicitly advocated for it.
Telling people to engage in the common purpose of using violence or intimidation to impede law enforcement is insurrection, correct?
Not by itself, no.
Why not? What else needs to be met to be an insurrection?
Well, first of all, factually, that's not what Wick said. He said obstruction, and obstruction doesn't necessarily. It's a different definition than insurrection. So he wasn't advocating for insurrection.
No. That's not the point. What is the definition of insurrection?
An assemblage. That's a public gathering of 2 people or more for a common purpose to obstruct any federal law using force or intimidation. And for a public purpose. 4 elements. This is the Graber test. Would
obstruction be force or intimidation?
It depends. Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Give me an example of when it wouldn't be.
For example, submitting false documents to testify, refusing to comply with a lawful order.
Okay. How about obstruction in the moment?
I want to give you some more examples. Like having like a sit-in in the middle of a highway is not force or intimidation. So there are many things that could be obstruction that are not force or intimidation or
preventing the arrest of people.
It could be or it could not be force or intimidation.
So
it could be insurrection or for force or intimidation.
Okay, so we have so it seems clear to me that there are ongoing insurrections, and not only is Wick in support of that, he's telling people to continue with that behavior based on the rationale that
That's
this
not what
was
he said.
proved. It is. He told people that they have
Obstruct.
a moral obligation to obstruct ICE and to get arrested.
Yeah, that doesn't mean insurrection. For example,
there
were civil rights
I just want to be clear.
Okay.
The all of a sudden, the leniency on what it means to engage in an insurrection based on language has changed precipitously.
What's the leniency?
The Colorado court said evidence that he was engaging in insurrection were things like this. He retweeted someone saying the cavalry is coming. That was part of the evidence. He said things like, Mitch McConnell's not a fighter. We need people like Jim Jordan or whatever to fight. That was evidence that the Colorado court gave that Trump's language was engaging in an insurrection. If Trump had specifically said, I want you to obstruct law enforcement that's trying to secure the certification of the election, you would have said, my God, that's evidence that he was engaged in an insurrection.
So I don't think you're understanding the Colorado Supreme Court opinion. I will just say the standard that they're applying is Brandenburg. How Trump was found to have engaged in insurrection in the Colorado Supreme Court decision is through incitement. And that incitement standard under Brandenburg has specific elements. And one of those elements is intent. And of course, for totality of circumstances, all of that evidence is relevant to ascertain Trump's intent. And part of it's not the whole pie. It's building a foundation to show what Trump wanted to accomplish, and that's going to be informed by prior statements. Wait, I just want to be clear. It's informed by prior statements that get to his state of mind, but they don't by themselves constitute liable. He's not liable for those statements. Those statements inform his intent, which is part of the Brandenburg test for incitement.
So in order to incite, you had to intend to incite, and in this case, intend to incite an insurrection.
You need to, in this case, intend to incite an insurrection. That's correct.
Okay. And you agree that there are insurrections, at least some of them ongoing now?
I'm not sure.
Were there some yesterday?
I don't know if there were some yesterday. There have been some.
When a bunch of people got together, fought against ICE, threw tear gas back at them, and someone bit off the finger of one of the law enforcement, was that an insurrection?
I don't have enough facts to determine that based on the biting of the finger.
Do you heavily suspect that there was an insurrection yesterday?
I don't heavily suspect it. I'm not sure.
I find that to be incredibly disingenuous. Do you heavily suspect that today there was an insurrection as they tried to break into this hotel?
Same answer.
So I find that to be incredibly disingenuous. So I guess I'll say, for the sake of the audience, I think that Wick and you would have seen the actions that were going on that would qualify as an insurrection, which are people united for a common purpose.
Well, I grant there have been some. I grant there have been some.
And violence and intimidation. So Wick saw that and then specifically called for actions that would be tantamount to an insurrection.
Well, no. He specifically didn't. No, he specifically didn't. He did not.
He told people to obstruct. Now,
That's
a reasonable person would say that he meant obstruction in the same sense that we see people obstructing, which would be an insurrection. The idea that, no, when he was telling them they had a moral obligation to obstruct, he didn't mean in the very way the obstruction was occurring at the time he was saying that. He meant things like mislead with paperwork.
Yeah,
so it is clear
you're
that
just
there
not
is,
understanding incitement.
Let me finish. If it is a question of intent, is Wick telling people that he wants them to use violence, intimidation, to unite for a common purpose, to obstruct a federal law? The clear answer is yes. So that would mean that Wick has met the Brandenburg standard for intent to commit an insurrection. Would you at least, I know you're going to say you disagree, would you at least be for an FBI investigation into him?
Of course not. I think it's clearly First Amendment protected speech.
But it wasn't for Trump. You were for the investigation of him.
I wasn't in favor of the investigation for him because I thought that what he did was incitement. And I also thought that what he did was broader than just incitement. He was never charged with incitement. It was a broader conspiracy. And I don't think that the facts, predicate facts exist for Wick.
So if it was just incitement, you would have said, oh, no. Even though legally they could investigate, you wouldn't have recommended it against Trump.
No, I think they should have investigated Trump for incitement.
Okay, but not Wick.
Correct.
Why?
Because
Wick's clearly more inciting. He's literally telling people to break the law. Trump never did that.
But so again, advocating for law breaking is protected speech. Do you agree with that?
Not if it's advocating for an insurrection.
No. If it's not protected, if it's incitement. But you can say, for example,
Right.
I think it's morally justified. I think people have a moral justification to murder Republicans. That's protected speech. Do you agree with that? Yes or no?
I don't know.
It is. I'll
It
tell you.
probably would be protected. Okay.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, you said Trump's speech wasn't protected when he
Correct,
said things
'cause I
like
think it
fight like
rests-
hell.
Well, because I think the facts and circumstances there, with more, again, I don't think the speech by itself in that moment, I think you needed some additional investigation to really get the intent prong beyond a reasonable doubt. And so I don't think just based on the Ellipse video and the speech by itself and just that would be enough. I'll just be clear about that.
But it's also his previous, it's previous
it's
statements.
all that. It's the statements that he's having with respect to his inner circle.
Where did
It's the observations.
where did he ever-
from the?
Where
from
did he
the-
ever suggest? Where did he ever suggest that he wanted an insurrection, or that he was suggesting
wouldn't- no, no.
violence or intimidation?
No, I'm sorry. No, that's not that. There's like an explicit. I don't know why you think that the standard is some explicit statement or conspiracy with incitement.
Okay,
That's not-
fair enough.
Yeah.
Do you think that it is in? We already agree that it's insurrection to use violence, intimidation to prevent the execution of law. Do you think Wick wants to
Public
prevent
purpose,
the execution
assemblage.
of ICE? Do you
assemblage
think
public
Wick wants
purpose.
to prevent the execution of ICE?
By definition, he's calling for obstruction, which is to resist the federal law.
Okay. So at the very least, we know Wick is telling people to go out for a common purpose, to resist, right? How is this not intent that he's calling? And that's what you said the standard was, intent
Well-
for insurrection. That would
well,
be
he's not-
incitement.
no,
How is
the
that
question-
not intent?
the question-
He's specifically calling.
The question is whether he engaged in an insurrection. And
Correct.
You can engage in
And you
insurrection.
can engage via incitement.
Correct, but his statements don't rise to incitement because it doesn't
Why?
fulfill the
He's
Brandenburg test.
specifically telling people to insurrect.
Well, so no, he's not explicitly telling them. You agree with
That's
that?
not true. You've already agreed that he's at least he meets the standards of that.
No, I did not agree
He's
with
telling
that.
people. Do you think he's telling people to unite for a common purpose?
No,
You don't.
no.
So when he says it's moral for all of you to obstruct and go to jail, there's not a common purpose.
No,
there?
no,
He's
wait,
just
wait,
saying that.
no.
for individual purpose?
The element you're looking for is assemblage. There, that's the first element.
Okay, is he telling multiple people to go out? Yes, that would be assemblage.
I'm not sure that that's explicit. You can say that it's implied, but I don't think it's explicit. But even putting that aside, what he's saying is he's advocating for law breaking with obstruction, and that doesn't entail force or intimidation.
I think a reasonable person could see it rises to the level of at least suspicion, given that we see that these insurrections are ongoing, and he's looking at them and saying that you morally should go join in. Next, the insurrections that are occurring.
Wait. The one example he gave was lying to DHS, and you also know Wick, and I know Wick. Wick is like a cuck in terms of peace and in terms of not advocating for violence. You know that.
I disagree. I
When
think that
has
I
he
would have
ever-
thought that until I heard. I think I would have heard that until I heard him tell people, while insurrections are ongoing and violence against ICE is ongoing, telling people that you have a moral duty to obstruct them and go to jail. I no longer believe that.
Wait. Don't you see him all the time, like fucking woke scolding Destiny and soy pill every
Did
time
you
they
see
say
Trump
like
say go be peaceful?
no, but like you actually see Wick go and like not just do self-serving statements. He has built a reputation for doing the peace stuff.
The man,
in a way that
clear cut.
Trump didn't.
The man's words are clear cut in what he said here, and it is clear to everyone watching that your standard on the language of Trump that nowhere rose near to the level of what Wick said was somehow speaking to intent to incite.
When you say didn't
but
rise
not
to the
what
standard, do you
Wick
mean
said.
Brandenburg or some other standard?
The intent to incite that you're giving under Brandenburg?
Well, again, I think that the standard for incitement is just so trivially unmet in the Wick case.
So now there are insurrections are going. What do you think the goal of the insurrectionists are?
It depends on which insurrection you're talking about, but the ones that I
Give me a
have
general
acknowledged,
thought.
the
Yeah.
ones that I acknowledge, it is to resist the enforcement of federal law,
Okay.
of federal immigration
And
law.
so, given that it was very loose, the language Trump used, if the insurrectionists are resisting federal law, and you yourself are on X as you're watching the insurrection saying abolish ICE, how isn't that you engaging in an insurrection?
Wait, so in what respect am I watching an insurrection happen and advocating for
Did you
it?
watch the violence yesterday against ICE?
Which one are you referring to?
Well, in Minneapolis.
Again, which instance are you referring to? The violence when they shot the guy?
No, I'm referring to the violence that was meted out afterwards to law enforcement.
I saw
In
an
fact,
officer
In
have
fact,
his finger
was
bit
not
off.
when the guy got shot, was he not committing an insurrection?
No.
2 or more people obstructing. He put his hands on law enforcement, common purpose to prevent the execution of ICE carrying out their duties. How's
Yeah,
that not an insurrection?
Yeah, I don't buy that you've met out any of those elements.
Okay, you don't buy. Okay, 1, was there 2 people or more?
There was an assemblage of people. There were more than 2 people.
Okay, so I met that element. Were they united for a common purpose?
So I'm not sure about that. Whether there was a common.
I think you know that
unifying
they were
purpose.
united to prevent ICE.
They were there to do lawful things like observe and not to use force or intimidation.
So for a common purpose? They were there for a common purpose?
I'm not sure the specific intent of these people. I suspect yes.
Were they there to resist law?
I don't have any evidence of that.
Did he put his hands on
Putting on who?
an CBP officer?
I'm not sure about that. But putting your hands
did.
on a police
Also-
officer isn't a crime by itself, or use of force or intimidation.
Sure
by
it
itself.
is. Sure it is. It is force and intimidation if you are literally putting your hands on an officer trying to
You
carry
need
out
to
their
have it.
duties.
You
In addition,
need to have intent there, Rob. You need to have intent. He was
did have
maced.
intent.
He was maced and was being fucking pistol whipped. And so
put his
to the extent that he was moving around.
He put
That's not
his
necessarily.
hands on before he was maced.
He put his hands on a woman to pick her up because he's a good person. He's
After he was maced.
is an ICU nurse, and he's a good person.
The woman got maced, and then he went in between the woman and the officer, put his hands on the officer, and then got maced
to pick
to
her
prevent
up.
the execution of the law.
No, to pick her up.
Yes.
And to
No.
care for her.
How was him putting his hands on law enforcement to pick her up?
Wait, I don't remember when he put his hands. He put his hand up. Hand up. That's what I saw.
If he touched that law enforcement officer
No.
in an attempt to prevent them from going towards this woman, that is a crime.
In addition, whether it's a crime or not doesn't mean that it's that stopping him in that moment was for a public purpose.
Of course,
when it seems
Of
like his
course
concern when it seems like his concern is the well-being of this woman who fell.
Does it have to be putting on your hands to use violence or intimidation?
Well, it doesn't need to be putting on hands for violence or intimidation, but not every contact between peoples constitutes force or intimidation.
Would you say causing pain or discomfort to law enforcement officers would rise to the level of intimidation?
It would rise to the level of force.
Okay.
Putting them in pain.
So when they're blowing rape whistles right in their ear,
Oh my God.
that could destroy eardrums?
I'm not sure if I would consider that force or intimidation.
I think I would. I think that's clearly intimidation. And that's what these group of people. So there was an ongoing insurrection based on your own.
Do you know what intimidation is?
Yes, intimidation is. Well, you give me the legal standard. I know what I would call intimidation.
What would you call it? And then I'll
What's
give you
the
what I
legal
think it is.
definition of intimidation?
I'll tell you what I'll tell you what I think it is, and you tell me what you think it is. Do you want me to go first?
Okay, sure.
Okay. I think it's putting someone. I take intimidation to be a form of threat. Put someone in reasonable apprehension of bodily injury. That is with an intention to do so, that they're going to get hurt.
Yeah, I agree. I think that sounds about right. And I would say blowing rape whistles and screaming "fuck you" and all that stuff leads to that level.
So you think then definitionally every single Jan Sixer who's saying "fuck you," they're all engaged in intimidation?
Yes, I would say anyone's like "fuck you,
on.
ICE," blah blah blah, as their classic.
But Jan Sixers too, just saying "fuck you."
Yes, the ones that are screaming at law officers saying "fuck you" and blah 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 and advancing to them and pushing, I would say is intimidation. I didn't share your definition of insurrection, but sure, I would say that's intimidating.
Not
particularly
is it
in a world where
intimidating?
we see
Is it intimidation?
Now when we see a world where these ICE officers are being threatened all over the place, And we see this occurring. This clearly was intimidation. So this
Oh,
was
Wick
actually
wants in. Do you want to talk to Wick? Because we both have works to say to him. Okay. Wick.
Yeah.
Wick, let me add you to the call real quick. Let's see if I can add you to the call, Wick. Do you want to be added? Let's just make sure he wants to be added. Just tell me in the chat if you want. Oh, he DM'd me. Uh-oh, Wick. I think you fucked up a little bit, Wick. I think you fucked up. You need to be friends with... We're not friends? Send friend request. Sorry. You have to accept it, Rob.
Who, me? And
yeah,
you?
you have to accept my friend request. Wick, we're friends, right?
Okay. I have to send you a friend request.
No, I sent it. I sent it to you. I sent it to you.
Oh, okay. I accept it. All right.
Because Rob and I agreed that you did it bad here. You weren't supposed to do that. But I think that your speech is protected, Wick. I will say that. I think that your Wick is protected. Your Wick is protected. Your speech.
Oh, that's I mean, because your standard is grotesquely different. Nonetheless,
it's the First Amendment standard. You're allowed to say, I want criminal things to happen. And I want you to do crimes. That's allowed.
You thought it rose to the level of incitement of an insurrection when Trump said,
because that's like, Brandenburg. Because he meets Brandenburg. Well, no,
I think Wick meets Brandenburg.
I don't think he does.
I think Wick meets Brandenburg. I think he does. I think it's clear that Wick was having a far more call to violence, intimidation, and insurrection than Trump was.
All right, we're adding Wick. All right, cool. Mr. Wick and Rob, you're on the air. Wick, what'd you do, man? Let's give the floor first. Let's have this organized to Rob, so that he can lay out his case, and then Wick, you can give your defense. Is that cool?
I'm your guest. It's your channel.
Cool, Rob.
Yeah,
why don't you start?
You told people you're a coward. You told people to put their bodies on the line to obstruct law enforcement and to get arrested. You do so from your comfy chair. This is two things. One, it's probably a crime because you've probably incited an insurrection. Secondly, even if it's not, you're inciting people to break the law, which is despicable. And third, you're going to lead to people being harmed or arrested, which is absolutely despicable. And the situations like we saw are going to become more inevitable because of scumbags like you that encourage people to go out there and challenge law enforcement.
Wick, your response?
Okay, so coward's a funny word for someone who decided to go behind my back, not approaching me, but going to Pisco to talk about me without talking to me, without, confronting me yourself. So the coward's a funny word to use there. I'll start with that. Second of all, when we talk about blood on our hands, I think that the people who are defending these ICE agents and preventing them from being held accountable is just going to lead to these ICE agents continuing to kill people in the street and to brutalize women and to brutalize civilians just for exercising their First Amendment and Second Amendment rights. So if anyone has blood on their hands, it is you, sir. And third, I absolutely stand by my statement that we have a moral obligation to obstruct ICE. And what I mean by that, and I say, if you're a Christian, if you're a patriotic American, you currently have a moral obligation to obstruct ICE. If they come to you and they ask you, where are the Spanish people? Where are the Hmong people? Where are the Somalians hiding? Lie to them. You don't know. You haven't seen shit. Okay? If you see them, hit record. Take out your phone and hit record. Thank God.
No, but that's not obstruction. But that's not obstruction.
Let me finish.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, again, record these people. And thank God someone was recording that poor petty guy who got shot, right? Because otherwise people would still be pushing the DHS lies that they put out. And it's crazy to me that you would defend DHS in this. That's insane. And look, I explicitly said to do this all non-violently. Don't touch them, don't hurt them, don't threaten them, but absolutely do not cooperate in any way, shape, or form with them.
Okay, I'll respond. One, wasn't an act of cowardice, as seeing as how I started my stream and I had no idea that you had recommended from your comfy chair that other people go put their bodies on the line by breaking the law. And so that came on in the course of this. Second, I didn't plan to talk to Pisco. Pisco happened to call into the show, and I was like, did you see what Wick said? And he acknowledged that it was a bad idea. Third, whataboutism, even if I was a coward, it doesn't prove that you're not. I noticed that you won't be out there actively obstructing ICE.
Hold
You
on.
just tell your
Why won't I?
please,
Hold on.
I give
Hold on.
you a
Hold on.
long,
No, no,
I
no, no,
give
no.
you a, I
If I
give you a
see
long period.
ICE,
I
I'm
give you a
absolutely
long,
going to do
I
those
give
things.
you a long.
If ICE comes to Philadelphia,
I give you a
let
long.
Rob
going to do those things.
let Robert
was
respond.
capable.
Let Robert respond. Yeah.
I was capable of sitting there quiet, something that Wick is incapable of doing. In fact, his lack of sort of ability to control himself is why we find ourselves in this position in the first place, where he is actively recommending that his audience break the law, which is despicable. And the idea that this somehow means that, like, oh, that there's blood on my hands or something is ludicrous. It would be no different than saying there was blood on your hands if you didn't think that the shooting of Ashley Babbitt was criminal. This is stupid. You have no idea what I've said. And people like you that are encouraging people to go obstruct ICE, it's what makes violent confrontations with ICE more likely and why these things will continue. Now I'll ask you a specific question. When you say obstruct, you're claiming just nonviolently. If it is a religious thing, as a Christian, as an American, you should obstruct. Should you also put your body on the line to prevent them physically from arresting such as some illegal? Should you try to interfere and get in their way to help the person escape? What do you think?
So I will say this, that Petty, when he went to stop that ICE officer from brutalizing the woman and he stood between them, he did something that was righteous and just. And the fact that he was beaten and then murdered for it is shameful and despicable. So when you say things like, oh, you're a coward, if they come to Philadelphia and I happen to be in the area and I see ICE, I'll take out my phone, I will film them, I will not cooperate with them. This is not a coward's position.
But why do you concede that's
not the
obstruction real
question.
quick?
Wait, let me finish.
Yeah,
That's not obstruction, one. Secondly, okay, so your argument is if you see law enforcement struggling with someone and trying to arrest them, whether it be someone that's you think is an illegal alien.
Hold on, what did I say?
You didn't answer the question. That's what you said. So I'm asking you specifically the question.
Petty,
The
is
question
that his name? Petty, I forget
okay,
how to say
if
his
you
name.
see
Freddie.
them trying
Freddie.
to arrest an illegal, are you telling people to get in the way?
Again, it depends on the context. I think that in the context of the Preddy situation, what he did was righteous and just. Yes.
Do you think should he have put his hands on officers to try to prevent them
He
from
didn't
touching?
put his hands on officers.
That's not true. He did.
Oh no, he
I
didn't.
didn't see that,
You're
Rob. I
lying.
didn't see that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not in the video.
Okay.
You show me the
let's
frame
find-
where he puts the thing. We can pull up the video if you
Okay.
like.
Yep.
He does not throw hands whatsoever. All he does, in fact, he tries to help the lady up and walk away, but the ICE agents drag him back. They pin him down. They punch him in the face repeatedly with a gas canister. They pin him down. They disarm him and then they shoot him dead.
Yeah, but Wick, that's
That
not
is what
obstruction, right?
happened.
I don't think that he was. I agree with you. I think that he was picking her up with the purpose of trying to help her, and I don't think he had the intent to obstruct ICE in its duties. And that's why I don't understand. Like, yeah, I agree that you should record. I agree that you should do. I think that that's protected. The courts have found that that's protected. I don't think that what Alex did. There's any reason to think that what he did was criminal in that context. And people who are saying that are just fucking don't have like a clear idea of what's going on. And I don't actually think that there's any good reason for the stop, frankly, in the first place, or even detaining him in that case. And so I don't, with respect to the lies, I don't know why we would say actively lie to DHS as opposed to just like not talking to them and just like not cooperating. So like, I just don't understand. Like, can't you say all that without saying do obstruction? Because that by its definition seems like it's saying do crimes.
Are you just mad at the word obstruction?
Well, I just interpreted that when you say obstruct them, I thought what you were saying is do the crime of obstruction. And I think that that's dangerous a little bit because like, oh yeah, cool.
Okay, I'm clarifying then. I'm saying that you should not cooperate. You should lie to them if they're trying to find someone, right? And things like that, because you can't be sure if they're telling you the truth. They've lied too much. And I think you have a moral obligation to let people know when ICE is going to be in the area, where they are going, let people know what kind of cars they're driving, where they're going, all that stuff. You should let people know what they're saying. You should blow your little whistles, right? You should honk your horns. Just make the community aware, because they are currently, I consider them kind of a domestic terrorist organization at this point.
Rob,
I
thoughts?
think that
Oh, my
they're,
bad. Sorry.
Yeah, I think
He wasn't.
this is
He wasn't.
absolutely.
He wasn't done. Sorry, my bad. Wait, just
Okay.
finish real quick.
yeah, sure. You should record them. And again, these are things that ICE officers themselves have implied and told citizens that are illegal. And if they are, I'm not a lawyer, right? If they are illegal, you should do them anyway.
There you go.
Wow.
So there you have it. He is recommending that you should break the law. These things are illegal. This is no different, and I hope that we find the people in the signal chat that I haven't had a chance to talk about yet. I hope the people that are actively coming together in efforts to obstruct law enforcement using, as you hear Wick saying here, he's willing to use violence and intimidation. These are
Hold on.
You didn't say
said
that, Rob.
specifically non-violence.
This would be intimidation.
What would?
Yeah,
Blowing the whistles, getting in their way, et cetera, doing what Preddy did. That's intimidation.
What Preddy did was
I
not
don't
an
know.
intimidation,
Yeah, I
and
don't
only
know
a
why
loser and a fool would call that
It is
intimidation.
that is
Only
so
a
just to
coward,
be-
loser, and a fool, a fat little fuck, would call
Whoa,
that.
whoa, whoa, whoa!
there-
You
there we
went
go.
personal
No,
first.
no.
You went personal first.
Let him go. I know the big man that wants to tell his audience to go out and break the law and put their bodies on the line, which will lead to violent altercations with ICE, wants to call other people names. I don't mind at all. I don't need
You
to
called me a
resort to
coward.
that.
You're getting what? You're getting
Yes,
the same
I
energy
do
you
think
gave
it's
me?
an act. I do think it's an act of cowardice to suggest that other people break the law while you're not doing so. I do think that's an act of cowardice, and it's a dangerous act. And I think that you could see that there is a time where they first push that woman down, that Preddy, gets in the way and puts hands. He's making physical contact with the person. And I
With the
think that
woman, right?
suggesting that-
With the woman, right? With the woman?
No, he's making contact with ICE.
It doesn't look
Or
like it's in the
CBP.
video.
It is what it shows in the video. And I'm trying to find it clear.
Can you show us the frame where you think that he's putting his hands on ice?
Yes,
Maybe
he is
when
making
he's getting beaten. Sorry, it's horrible. I'm bad.
Yes, when he's physically intervening, when he sees them push them down,
Hey,
he
tell
gets
you
in-
what, Rob. Rob. Here's the thing I'm gonna tell you right now, man. Like,
Mhm.
if an ICE agent goes and they push your wife down, I will get in the way and I will protect her. I would hope that you would do the same.
I don't give a shit what your appeal to emotion here is.
Is that an
You're-
appeal
what
to
you're
emotion? I'm just
what you're
stating a
saying-
simple
what
fact
you-
of what I
Well,
would
you're
do.
invoking
what
you're
you're
invoking
saying-
his
You would
wife.
be like,
You're invoking his wife, and you're
Just
basically
let it
calling him.
happen.
You're invoking his wife, and basically
So
saying
if you
he's
were
not
there
a real
on
man.
if you were there on January 6th and there were times where officers you thought were going over the line, would you have got in between the officers and them?
Yes.
I don't believe you.
Well, you
I think
don't
you're
have
full of
to.
shit.
I don't care what you think or believe.
And otherwise, you could try to defend yourself here. What you're doing is grotesque, and probably is a violation of YouTube
Hold on, by
standards.
telling people
I
to
gave you a chance.
stop-
I gave you a chance. I'm going to
Hold
go ahead
on.
and say my piece. I can
Okay, say your
control
piece.
myself,
Okay.
unlike you. I don't need to resort to the little petty bullshit you're saying and interrupt. It's
You called
probably
me
a violation of.
coward.
It's
Wait,
probably a
wait.
violation of
Just let Rob. Just let Rob talk.
It's probably a violation of YouTube standards to recommend that your audience breaks the law. Now, I just wanted you to recant because I don't want anything bad to happen to you, but to the point where you're telling people to actively engage in the types of behavior like we see with these ICE signal chats, which there quite literally could be a RICO standard or a RICO case that will be built because there are people actively instructing people on how to obstruct ICE, something that you're recommending. You're also saying that the things like blowing the whistles in their ear, screaming at them, shouting at them, honking at them, and you would even go as far as Preddy and other people that at times, depending on the situation, you would prevent them from arresting people, shows that you are willing to use what would be tantamount to intimidation. You can't put your hands on ICE. You can't prevent them from arresting people. That is not your place. And to recommend to your audience while you're not doing it that they do that makes situations like what just happened yesterday more likely to occur. And it is despicable. I think it's one of the worst things that streamers could do is to tell people to give them advice to either break the law or to put themselves in harm's way. I find it disgusting, and I hope that you change your tact and tell your audience that that's an absurd thing and that you apologize for suggesting it.
Wait. Before you answer, I just want to make sure that I understand. It could be I'm just telling you, when I heard you say that, when you said, and you will be arrested, it sounded like you were advocating for doing something that would constitute breaking the law. But as I'm hearing you
just-
describe the conduct, all this stuff seems like it's legally protected. Recording.
Yeah, and
I think
but keep in mind, even though it's legal protected,
you could
ICE
still be
will
arrested.
arrest
Yes,
you.
no,
ICE
that's
will
what I'm.
still arrest you. And like, for example, in what was it, Metropolis Blitz,
Yes.
the operation in Chicago, where they brought in, I think 15 cases have gone through and been settled. Out of those 15 cases, you know how many convictions they got?
Yeah, no. I understand, but
Zero.
There's a way to interpret what you're saying, where what you're basically saying is it's your duty to do these things and obstruct in the more layman
Yes, you have a
sense
moral obligation to do these things.
of not cooperating, of doing what you're legally protected in doing that are covered by First Amendment. For example, going to locations in the public, telling people where to go on locations in the public, and filming things in the public. Now that's a way to interpret lying. I'm not sure if that would be specifically protected, to be honest with you. But certainly like not cooperating, I'm not sure. But is it the case? You're not advocating for law breaking, are you?
Law breaking? I'm advocating for. Look, I don't know the law. I'm advocating for doing what's morally right, morally just, and I gave specific things that I want people to do, and I think are good to do, because I think these are the only things that will actually calm the situation down and lead to less death and less violence. The more people who record these people, right? The more people who record the grotesque, brutal beatings of American citizens that Rob Noerr is defending, right? The more people who see that, the more likely it is that ICE agents will, again, be defunded, be disbanded, and face justice. Maybe not in this administration, but in the next. I think that it is very clear, right, that, again, if you see someone brutalizing a woman, step in.
And there you have it. So he's acknowledging that he is calling for the physical obstruction of law enforcement. If he sees them, quote, brutalizing women, he admits he doesn't know what the law is, and yet he's recommending people to do this, which on its own right is something that's dangerous. And
hold on, if you see 3 ICE agents raping a woman, you should stop them?
Please, let me finish.
Yeah, let Rob.
No, I'm just asking. Do you think if you see
let him finish. You can ask that.
Do you think people should stop them?
Please let me finish.
Yeah.
I know you have a
we'll get an answer to that. We'll get an answer to it, but just let him respond, and then we'll get an answer to it.
I know the big man that can't control himself that's recommending his audience on YouTube breaks the law, can't control himself. I'll get to answering his question when he sees fit to ask it in a way where he allows me to finish my point. Nonetheless, you could see that he is recommending. He says he's been very specific. He hasn't. He said things like you should stop the brutalization of a woman. Many times what he would consider brutality wouldn't be something that's illegal. And he's recommending that people make those judgments themselves and actively interfere with ICE's apprehensions of suspects that are women. This is ludicrous. And once more, he's a coward because he's recommending that his audience put their bodies on the line while he's unwilling to do it. Wick, if you really feel so strongly about this, why don't you head to Minneapolis?
Yeah,
if you're going to recommend that your audience does it, why don't you go?
My question again until you answer it. If you saw 3 ICE agents raping a woman, would you stop them or try to stop them, or at least try to record them and get them and report them to the local police? Something, right?
Yes.
Yes, you would do that. Excellent. Okay, what if you see them going and just punching them in the face? You see 3 ICE agents pinning a woman down, kicking her in the face, taking a tear gas canister, bashing her head in the side. You see blood, and one of them pulls a gun and points it at her back. What are you going to do in that situation?
I probably wouldn't interfere. Now, let me ask you some questions, Wick. What would you do?
Are you not going to answer that question?
I said I probably wouldn't.
He answered it.
Let me answer
Wick, he answered the question. Now answer his question.
Okay,
now,
question?
what would you do? What would you want done to a cowardly YouTube streamer that is recommending that his audience break the law, justifying it by using absurd hypotheticals like it's basically the same as me saying I would stop 3 ICE agents from raping a woman? What would you think should happen to that person? Should they A, be held legally accountable, and B, should they be kicked off of platforms like YouTube for advocating that their audience put their lives in jeopardy by intentionally breaking the law?
By intentionally breaking the law.
Correct, which is what you suggested.
Interesting. I think that I said specifically that the things you should do are 1, record ICE. Is that against the law?
The question wasn't whether or not you in fact did those things. What should happen to someone who does those things? And
It
what's your answer?
depends. Like, honestly, like for example, I'll give you an example. If YouTube existed in the days of slavery and someone was advocating that you help free slaves, even if that was illegal, I don't think anything should happen to that YouTube
That's
channel.
not what we're
So it
not
depends
talking
on
about.
so the question is
hypothetical
it
of
the
We're
answer
talking hypotheticals. That's what I mean.
the answer is
Can
it
you answer
depends.
the question?
The answer is it depends on the specific advocation for what
Yeah, it
crimes.
depends on the advocation and the law that you're advocating to break.
Okay, that's the answer.
I do not think law and morality are the same thing, and I think that sometimes if a law is odious, that you have a moral obligation to break that law. It would depend on the law.
Oh wow.
So if right
You
wingers
disagree
go
with that?
online,
I don't
if
disagree.
right wingers go online and recommend people breaking the law on YouTube, as long as they have a claim that they feel that law is immoral, you're okay with it.
So to be clear, and this is another thing I'm known for, as well as nonviolence, as Pisco said, is that I am anti-deplatforming. I think that your First Amendment rights are so important to me that you can go on and you can advocate for law breaking, and I don't think you should be deplatformed.
That's
right wing, left wing,
that's First Amendment though,
matter. That's at least an
that's First Amendment, and I agree with you on that. I think Wick has done nothing criminal in what he did, and I think that I would be against
Maybe
any.
the FBI would disagree. Maybe someone will send in a fucking tip.
I would
Maybe.
be. I would be very much against that. I think that everything that Wick has
Are
done
you
here has been.
to be clear, Rob? You don't have to just imply it. You can just say right what you think. Do you think that are you going to send in a tip to me? Are you
No.
going to try to get me deplatformed?
No, I told you, in fact, I want the opposite. I wanted you to stop this dangerous rhetoric. I don't want you deplatformed at all. Nor
Why
would
is
I
my
ever
rhetoric
send in
dangerous?
that
specifically?
because you were suggesting the reason that Preddy is dead is because he took the exact advice that you're suggesting.
That's
that
not true.
Yes,
not
it is
true.
true. What happened was he was part of a group, right, that decided they were going to intentionally obstruct the efforts of ICE. They were doing so by doing things like constantly surrounding them, blowing rape whistles and shit like that in their ear, intervening on when they were trying to apprehend or prevent a woman from blowing that whistle in their ear, standing in the middle of the street, preventing them from lawfully executing the law. He decided to get in the way while he was knowingly armed, and that leads to escalations that will predictably allow to people dying. That's what happened with Renee Good as well, because they are taking your advice. You go even further and say, not just that people should film, but that they should, quote, break the law and obstruct and prevent and lie, prevent them from being able to execute their law. You do so from the comfort of your own home. I would not call in the tip. I'm strongly suggesting that you refrain from saying these things. I think
I can't refrain from saying these things because me refraining from saying these things would be an act of cowardice. These are things that I believe, and I have a habit. If I believe something, whether you like it or not, I am going to say something. And I think that people need to hear these things.
Well, you're not a
Preddy
coward.
did
Then head
not
to
die
Minneapolis.
because he quote unquote followed my advice. He was recording ICE. He was doing nothing illegal. He was doing no obstruction. He was not trying to interfere with law enforcement in any illegal way. He was not trying to intimidate them. What he did was he saw a woman being pushed repeatedly by ICE agents. He went in to stand between them. The ICE agent pepper sprayed him in the face. He tried to help that woman up. They dragged him back in. They beat him. They pinned him to the ground. They took a gas canister and slammed it into his face several times. They disarmed him, and then they shot him in the back. Those are the facts of the case. Those are the facts of the matter. And frankly, it is shameful. It is fucking cowardice for you to suggest otherwise, to lie to your audience, to lie to me, to lie to Pisco, and say that the facts are anything other than what I just listed out. I just listed out things that are verifiable, that we can watch on video, that we can see from multiple angles, and not only you, the DHS, but this administration has blood on their hands because what you are doing is you're preventing these officers from being held accountable, so they will continue to act the way they are because they cannot be held accountable, and this administration has signaled that they will not even investigate. So fuck you. I hope that you repent.
Your performative outrage means nothing to me. You claim
I know.
that you're not a
Nothing
coward.
means
Let him
anything
wait.
to you.
Let him
There you go, interrupting
let
again.
him respond.
Your performative outrage means nothing to me. You are a coward of the utmost, highest criteria, recommending that your audience breaks laws that you're unwilling to do. If you're so outraged, you could have gotten your way after the Renee Good shooting to Minneapolis, but you don't because you're a coward. You want to do what all of these other lefties want to do, which is to make this situation likely to have martyrs, so that the political outcome that you want of stopping ICE from lawfully enforcing the law can be achieved. And you know, by setting up and saying that people should rely on their own judgment, judgment when they think ICE is going too far with the law and then break the law to obstruct them, that's likely to lead to violent confrontations with law enforcement. You're fine with that. The truth is, you want people like Preddy to die. You want people like Renee Good to die. You would fucking love it if someone in your own audience took your advice, went and obstructed ICE, and then was killed so that you can make yourself the center of the story, and you would be able to then further go on and say this was more evidence as to why ICE should be disbanded. You are despicable. You are someone that I think, if we could have differing opinions or whatever, in fact, you don't even know what my opinion is on this shooting. You don't have a fucking clue. I talked to Pisco about it. You don't know, right? But the fact is, no matter what, I've never suggested that people actively go out there and put themselves in harm's way because they should do things that I think are illegal, but I would consider moral and obstruct law enforcement. There are tons of things that I thought were outrageous and immoral. For example, the FACE Act, locking up people that were pro-life protesters. Show me once ever suggesting that people should put their bodies on the line to prevent the execution of that law that I thought was illegal or immoral. It is evident that what you're doing is incredibly dangerous. It may or may not rise to the level of a crime, but it's something that you should be ashamed to do. And your tough guy routine of calling me a coward and saying, but what if they were raping women? Fuck you. You don't have shit all to say when we see all sorts of other actions that occurred in other administrations we be tantamount. You never said shit about this. The truth is, you're a political hack. You want people to be harmed. You want them to get in harm's way. And as long as people like you spout off your fucking mouth, it makes it inevitable that ICE is going to continue to have these confrontations with people.
Okay.
And inevitably, some of those will result in levels of violence, which again, you will thrive on. I think that everyone that's watching this, even Pisco, understands that what you're saying is very fucking dangerous. And the fact that you want to imply that somehow makes you some strong guy. If you were really not a coward, you would be there. Why didn't you stop?
Wait, give him the last. Give him one last sentence, and then you can go ahead, Wick, and
one last sentence.
If you're really so brave and you're not going to be a coward, why wasn't your ass in Minneapolis?
You done?
Yeah, he's done. That was the last
problem
sentence.
The problem you're having, Rob, is, and I think the audience can plainly see this, right? You have to add words to what I say. You have to add and infer, like, oh, Wick actually wants this, despite everything he says. Where I can simply stick to the facts at hand. I can simply look at the facts and again go through the facts of the Preddy shooting, right? Showcase what happened, and then showcase what you've said about it. Like, I don't know your stance. I can reasonably infer it based on what you're saying now, based on what I heard you say to Pisco, based on
what do you think it is,
conversation we're having.
What do you think his stance is?
So he thinks, because he said this, that Preddy obstructed, intimidated, or did something.
But on the shooting,
but on
the shooting,
and so the shooting was probably may or may not have been good that he actually got shot, but he actually fucked around and he found out.
Did I say that, Pisco, in the entire conversation?
You didn't say that, but is that your position?
No, my position is that you should be very careful if you're armed before you're actively resisting law enforcement. But I think no matter what,
that's kind of fucker out to find out, right?
Let me finish.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Hold on, no. You went on a whole spiel. No, you can listen. You can control yourself. Calm down.
Wait. Let Rob respond to the question.
Let Rob respond.
Sorry. No. Wait. So that was the question and answer, Rob. So you think that's answer? You said that your position is that you need to be careful when you're with a gun and resisting, right? But
the shooting of him was tragic, and the exercising. If you started to watch this, the exercising of the Second Amendment should absolutely be allowed, even to the people that are protesting. So I don't know where the fuck he gets this. The balls that he has, implying that there's blood on my hands and then admitting, but I don't know your stance, is laughable. This is the judgment of the person that's telling people.
Okay, now
who's also admitting.
Why are you lying about what I'm saying? I'm not going to let him lie about what I just said.
Let Wick continue. You answered the question, and Rob says that that's not accurate. Go ahead.
And this is the thing, like, he lied just now. You all saw it about what I said.
What's the lie?
Right? That he claims that he doesn't know my stance or whatever, right?
That is what
I said in fact, please shut up. Rob, you just can't control yourself, and I understand you're upset, you're angry that you're being righteously called out.
I thought you said that you didn't know it for sure, but you could infer it. I thought that you did say that.
Yes, I can infer it. Absolutely.
I didn't lie then.
Right?
I didn't lie.
So
you absolutely lied. But let's continue.
Lie?
Here's the problem.
I don't think it's a lie. I don't think it's a lie. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead, Wick.
No, but that's
You
that's
lied.
a,
I'm righteous.
Hold on,
okay,
are you
that's
okay?
an
You
that's
gonna
an
have a heart
Rob.
attack,
That's
bro?
an
You gonna
Rob.
let me
That's
finish? Or you
Rob.
gonna
That's an
filibuster?
ancillary point. That's an ancillary point. Okay, but go ahead, Wick.
You gonna filibuster? You gonna keep
Wick,
trying
respond to
drown
him.
me
All
out?
right,
Or you
let's.
gonna let
We
me
want
go?
some constructive dialogue. Go.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's possible to have actually constructive dialogue with Rob. To be clear, I think he's a liar and a coward. But beside the point for now. Again, this implication that I want violence to be done is the exact opposite of the truth. What I'm advocating for is the path to actually get things to cool down and stop. I want people to be safe. And when ICE agents are out there brutalizing people, breaking the law, violating the Fourth Amendment, right? They have a secret memo going around. Did you hear about this, gang? The whistleblower that showed they had a secret memo going around saying they only needed administrative warrants to break into people's homes. That's absolutely not true. That absolutely goes against the Fourth Amendment. It's violating our constitutional rights. We see them actively, consistently lying to the American public. There was an incident in Chicago, for example, where they brought a woman up on charges saying that she rammed their car and then they shot her 5 times. The officer who did it said, 5 bullets, 7 holes. Put that one in your book, boys. And guess what? When the charges came to court, they had to drop them because it turns out that the officer lied, that DHS lied about what happened. The body cam footage, the footage that was available did not show her ramming the car at all. It showed him getting out and just fucking shooting into her. And guess what happened to that officer? Nothing. He's still on the streets. He hasn't even been given, to my knowledge, any sort of reprimand. They're just going around unaccountable to the public, not being investigated. Nothing is happening to these people. So until they are held accountable in the court of law, right? You should treat ICE as a convicted pedophile who's coming up to your kid.
Whoa,
That's
okay.
the level of disdain you should have for these motherfucking traitors.
Rob,
There you go. No, wait, please go.
I'm about to let you go.
Allow me to retort.
I'm
Allow me to retort.
I'm definitely about to
Why
let
are
you
you
go.
intervening, Pisco? Because you know what he just said?
No. I'm not. I am going to give you the full time to respond. But in response to your hypocrisy argument, what Wick is describing is that there's a difference in kind between what he sees ICE do and your allegations of violations of the FACE Act, your allegations about it's what the abuses of the other administrations, and that we should treat ICE essentially as I heard him before say domestic terrorists, and now I'm hearing him say as convicted schmedophiles. What is your retort, Rob?
Okay, can I ask a question real quick, Wick, without you filibustering, Wick?
Yeah, just a question and answer.
How would you treat someone that was a convicted pedophile? How would you treat them?
With disdain.
What's that mean? You would just say, "I don't like you." That's it.
Well, I wouldn't let them around my kids. I
Okay, and
wouldn't
if they were in public, if they were
dinner.
coming up to you
I
and your
wouldn't.
family,
I wouldn't.
what would you do?
I wouldn't exactly be friends with them. We
If they're
wouldn't
coming
be
up to you,
playing
if they're coming,
cards. What
if they're-
do you want me to say?
if they're coming up to you, if the convicted pedophile like starts to get in your face, they stop your car. What would you do?
If they get in my face and stop a car,
Yeah.
well, I tell them to leave. Hold on.
Okay, what
hold
if
on.
they
Hold
don't?
on. Let me ask. You asked me a question.
I'm
I'll ask you
asking.
a
I'm
question.
asking. What
Do
if
you
they
think
don't?
that? Do you think that I was going to suggest violence?
What if
Why is
they
it
don't?
that you would do violence to someone who isn't doing violence to you?
Well, that's interesting. You seemed to get in your high horse earlier and say if they were.
Hold on. Why
raping
would
someone,
you assume? Would you
I'm
hurt
answering
a
the
convicted
question.
pedophile
I'm
who hasn't
answering
done
the
anything
question.
illegal?
I'm answering. So you wouldn't do violence on someone that was raping someone?
Well, that's different.
I
One is by virtue
well
of
then,
wait,
so then
that's
the question is-
but that's different.
Please
What is
go.
the by virtue of?
I will answer. So the idea that when he says that I would treat them like a convicted pedophile or a terrorist, and then saying, "Oh, but perish the thought,"
I
you
didn't
should
say
think that would mean some. Pisco, did he earlier say domestic
I said
terrorist?
they are domestic terrorists. I didn't say I'd treat them like a terrorist.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
So
Those
are different
nonetheless,
things with
what you're
different
saying, I think that
implications
it
and
is.
different
I think
meanings.
that the implication is clear, especially given what you said prior, that you're advocating for using violent actions or
Do you really think that,
intimidating
Rob?
actions
I
against these
specifically
people.
said
I'm gonna
nonviolence. I
finish my
keep
point. I'm
repeating
gonna
myself,
finish my
and you keep
point.
lying
wait,
about what
I'm
I'm saying.
I'm going to finish my point.
Wait. I know it's your position that you're not advocating for that, and let Rob explain why you think he is, and finish your point.
because he's already said that the things that he considers that he would allow acts of violence if it goes to a certain level, if he thought they were immoral, right? And so when he's saying, based on his subjective interpretation, when something was immoral, that he would use violence, just like he would use violence to prevent a rape victim, he could say, actually, I'm advocating for nonviolence, but it's belied by the positions he's taking. And continuing when he starts to become even more hyperbolic, saying that ICE officers should be treated like pedophiles and they are domestic terrorists.
In terms of disdain, in terms of disdain, right?
But it's not just what he was saying in terms of disdain.
The level that you would like not invite them to your home, etc.
Why is it not just in disdain? Are you saying because that's what's likely to happen when people hear that they're likely will hear something different, or that Wick actually intends for violence to be done?
I'm going to finish my point without you two interrupting me. The reason is because he is post hoc justifying when he realizes that he's calling for violence. He's implying that violence should be used, and then he post hoc justifies when you come in to save him. That's what he's doing. That's like when he said you should obstruct, you should be illegal, and then you tried to save him, Pisco, and be like, well, what do you really mean illegal? And he's like, well, I don't know what the law is. Now, the full context here, you can see how unhinged and hyperbolic he's now saying that you should treat ICE and CBP as pedophiles, which you could get a little look into Wick's sort of, mental acuity there and whether or not he's able to approach these things dispassionately. Look at how he jumps on and accuses me of lying, where even Pisco
has have lied repeatedly through this conversation. You keep saying I'm calling for violence, and I am specifically calling for non-violence.
Yeah, Rob.
Non-violence.
Wait. Let Rob finish. But let's not get in this lie thing. Okay. Yeah, I mean, he accused you of lying. I don't think it's a lie. Maybe he thinks it was misrepresenting his position. But go ahead. But let's focus on the merits.
The reason this matters, right? The reason it matters is because you could see his hysterics claiming I lied when even you admitted it wasn't a lie. What I said was accurate. He's already claiming I have blood on my hands while admitting he doesn't even know what my position was. He was just inferring what he thought it might be. Now, this is the same person that's saying, yes, you should be allowed to actively prevent ICE from carrying out operations with your body if you feel what they're doing is against the law. And he has a subjective interpretation of the law. Now imagine what it would be like if everyone operated in this way. If I subjectively feel that something's against the law, for example, let's say that I feel that my Second Amendment is sacrosanct and I should be allowed to carry that weapon of any caliber wherever I want. And law enforcement says as I'm entering a place they can't take it, that I would recommend to people then that they intervene because that's a violation of the Second Amendment. Or that I would say that the censorship that we saw, that was, in my opinion, through the Twitter files,
on Twitter,
that was advocated by the government, through the government or NGOs suggesting people be censored. If I felt that was against the law, then I would be allowed to rise up righteously and break the law to prevent them from doing that. This is coming from someone in Wick who admits, as he's suggesting this, but I don't really know the law. Then he goes on to talk about the Fourth Amendment. Look, you might have a strong opinion that this memo was something that would be against the Fourth Amendment. The courts have not weighed in on it. The question is not as simple as you would see. Oftentimes, people are quite positive that the law is on their side, and then the Supreme Court disagrees. Pisco's quite positive that the Supreme Court's on his side when it comes to issues such as birthright citizenship. What if the court disagrees? Should Pisco have been out there preventing people from being removed, etc., under this interpretation? That would be absurd. The truth is that you're sort of standing up and like you're talking like this, and the violence and the blood on your hands and your tough guy routine is once more belied by the fact that your cowardly ass told your audience to break their law and put their bodies on the line, and you yourself are unwilling to head out there and do it. The truth is that you want ICE to be disbanded, and you're looking for a reason for that to happen.
At this point, yes, I do.
And you want the violent conflicts to occur.
You want the violent
conflict? The last thing I'll say is,
go ahead, Rob.
Thank you. Last thing I'll say is, why don't we see this sort of violence in places like Texas and Florida, where ICE is operating?
You do see the violence in these places,
and they're operating specifically. They went to Minnesota for a reason, though, as well. Like they went to Minnesota because
Minnesota refuses to cooperate. Correct.
No, because of the Shirley shit. But I want Wick to respond to your substantive point, which is kind of like
I'm waiting for a substantive point to be frank.
No. He had a point there, which is essentially that he's accusing you of hedging, and basically you said what you said about illegality, and now you're kind of softening it a little bit. And you're kind of like happy when the violence occurs because it'll just like help further cement your ideological point. Go ahead.
first of all, I have specifically said I don't want the violence to occur. It's been frustrating because this whole time I'm saying I like waffles, and Rob is like, "Oh, bro is saying he hates pancakes," and it's very frustrating when someone just continuously lies about what you're saying. When I say, "Hey, I want to stop the violence. Hey, if you're going to confront ICE, if you're going to approach ICE, do it non-violently." And I specifically, not only in this conversation, but in the conversation I had on my stream on Saturday, said that specifically. And Rob here is knowingly lying because he knows that he's been destroyed in this, that he looks like a fool, that he is a coward because, again, he hasn't come to me with any of this. He came to you behind my back.
Well, no.
Thinking and hoping I wouldn't
It's
find
like 12.
out.
I want to say a couple things. So first of all, with you, Wick, I don't think you're advocating for violence. You have like a track record of being very, very anti-violence and force. And so I don't think, like, I happen to agree with you on that point. That said, on like the behind the back thing, like we were chatting and I was responding to a specific legal point and he's like, why don't you come on? And we did it. And it's like 12 o'clock. And so I do understand that it might feel bad for him to bring it up to me first and not like message you initially, whatever. But yeah, Rob, why don't you respond to that? So why is it okay for you to bring that up with me and not go to him first?
I would say that Wick himself knows that. You're trying to tell me that Wick has never talked about bad behavior that he saw of other streamers without first contacting them? All three of us know that's bullshit. What I'm telling you is I didn't even hear that. You go back, watch my show. I didn't even hear of what Wick said. And I said, give him the benefit of the doubt. He probably didn't say something like that. And someone said, no, I sent the video in your chat. He specifically tells people to obstruct ICE. They have a moral obligation and they'll get arrested to break the law.
Say it again.
He specifically says it. Right. See? And so once I found that, and then I was going to talk to Pisco, I was like, that's interesting because we were talking about incitement to insurrection, and then it's clear that that's what
it's not incitement, dude. It is
so
people to insurrection.
Of course.
Hold on, is that your claim? Actually, I didn't know this. You're saying people are inciting an insurrection against.
Do you think he did a crime? You think he did a crime? Because incitement's a crime.
My claim is the following. If the standard that was used to say that Trump incited an insurrection because he said things like fight like hell, and then you saying, oh no, but it had to do with his intent. It is clear that Wick's intent is to, Wick, just answer some questions. Is it your intent to prevent ICE from carrying out the law?
No.
It's not?
No.
Oh, okay. So then
I think
what are you obstructing? Oh, you're obstructing what they're doing.
I think they're breaking
what they're doing,
the law.
but
I think they're brutalizing people, civilians. I think that they're intimidating civilians and trying to shut down their First, Second, and Fourth Amendment rights. I think that they're engaged in Eighth Amendment violations with cruel and unusual punishment as well. I'm advocating for the law to be upheld.
Okay, but deal with the Rob's point about the Wick Decide standard, right? The Wick Decide, like. People could say that about.
I don't outsource my decision making to anyone. Yes, of course, I'm going to use my own judgment. So you're the arbiter of the law. Absolutely, I'm going to use my own judgment. Do you not?
No, I don't consider myself the arbiter solely of what's legal and what's not.
I consider myself the arbiter of what is moral for me.
Quote, I don't know the law. It's laughable.
Hold on.
The truth is he's advocating for obstruction of ICE carrying out the law because he thinks that the deportations and the way they're doing it are illegal, correct?
Yes, I do.
There you go. So he's advocating for the
hold on. The deportations may or may not be illegal. I don't know. But the way that they're doing absolutely is not only illegal, but more importantly, let me finish. More importantly, it's immoral.
Okay, I also don't care about the morality, your opinion on the morality. So one, 4 standards for an insurrection, according to you, Pisco, was that it's a
assemblage, use of force, or intimidation.
Are you recommending people assemble?
No, but he could say.
I said, hold on, again, assemble to do what? I say, if you see ICE, okay, and I'll say it again, you get out your phone, you hit record. If you see ICE and they come up and they ask you, hey, where's the Spanish population? Where's the immigrant population? You ain't seen nothing. That's the specific things I'm calling for. I don't know, like, is that an assembly? Do you hear an assembly there?
Yeah, so I'll go further. I think you're
okay. So you hear an assembly there. You're just to be clear, you think that me saying these things is me calling for an assembly?
I think that you've gone further to say.
Okay, no, answer my question.
But it's not explicitly calling for an assembly.
Yes, it's
Of
not
course
calling
he
for an
is.
assembly
Of
at all.
course he is. He's
I'm
going
not
to lie
asking people
now.
to gather
He'll
together
lie
into
now.
groups.
He'll lie now and say that he's not calling for it. He said specifically.
Hold on.
He didn't just say. He didn't
Hold
say
on.
just lie.
You're
Wait,
lying
let
about
him,
me.
let him respond. Let him respond. Why is he
didn't
calling for an
say
assembly?
He didn't say just lie. He said that you should get out there. You should follow them. You should record them all.
Yeah.
You should prevent them.
Yeah, but that's
from
not an
doing
assembly,
things
right?
That I think's unlawful.
Of
Yes,
course
he's
it's not an
recommending
assembly.
that groups of people do that.
Well, oh, so you're
Of
saying
course it's not assembly. No assembly is being called for.
Oh, so you don't think that you're
Can
not
I do
saying
that all on my own?
Hey, should we all go out there and
No,
protest
can
ICE?
I do that all on my own by myself?
I just want to be clear. Theoretically,
Hold on, I'm
you could
asking
do
you a
that.
question. Do you think that I can do all those things that I mentioned on my own by myself? Do I need
Yes.
anyone else to do that?
Yes, you
What?
could do them on your own by
Okay, but
yourself.
even assume he was calling.
Now you'll answer my two questions. Did you say that you're going to do it on your own by yourself, or did you call for your audience to do it?
I said it's your moral obligation
Did you
which
say I'll do it
implies
on my
that it
own?
is both my
Did you say I
obligation
would do
to
it on my own?
and their obligation to.
Did you say
And
I would do
frankly,
it on my
your
own, or did you
obligation
say
to.
them?
So he was talking. I watched the video. He was talking to his audience for sure, but
Sure.
but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's calling for all his audience
Rick,
get
if you
together,
have
right?
a moral obligation to do it, why haven't you?
Because ICE isn't in my neighborhood.
So what? So it's okay if they're committing their abuses a couple hour drive away?
Look, there's someone being murdered across the country. If I was there, I would have a moral obligation to prevent that if I could.
Isn't this
So
kind
just
of
to
like
be
the
clear-
if you want higher taxes, why don't
Locality-
you donate money to the government
No,
argument?
it's nothing like that at all. His
Oh.
argument is these are
No,
people
no,
that are
he's
domestic
arguing that I
terrorists.
should. He's arguing that I said that he's implying at least that my moral obligation would entitle me to go and move across the country and spend lots of money. Nowhere
take a
did I
flight.
imply that. Nowhere did I say that. Rob,
That is
once
not-
again, is just fucking
No,
lying.
you
because
take
he's
a
a
flight.
fucking
What it
liar.
is,
And
when you're
frankly,
telling-
Rob is just too stupid to have this conversation.
I don't know what to say.
His
The fact that you
IQ
would
is
call-
below Somalian level.
the fact that
okay?
you
It's
would-
crazy.
Somalian
The
level?
fact that
That
you
was
would
fucking
apply-
racist. First of all,
Look,
it's
I know,
Somali.
no, maybe that was a little
Why-
too far.
why the
I'm
fuck
sorry,
did
I'm
you say
sorry, I'm
that?
sorry. Little,
That's fucked up. Stand up for the Somali
it's
community.
late. Okay,
Elwick,
it's late.
Elwick,
He's a
Elwick.
Okay, it's a little fucked up. But
He's a wannabe
that
tough
said,
guy. That's why he said it.
here's the
truth
deal,
is, that's
right?
not what he.
The
Wait, wait,
idea
wait,
he
wait,
has
wait,
to-
wait, wait,
insert things,
Rob.
he has to-
Let Wick have a sentence to clean up what he just said, and then Rob can respond. Okay,
Okay.
take your
Yeah,
sentence.
sure. So this idea, right, that and this has been throughout this conversation, where he has had to insert things that I didn't say. He's had to lie about what I actually said. He has to pretend that I didn't say things that I did say in order to try to force like this point that I have somehow done something cowardly.
One sentence you had here.
immoral.
Yeah.
Run on here. Huh?
Or
So Rob,
And
respond to
what
that,
I am
please.
saying,
Wait,
and what
can we-
no, let me finish. 'Cause
Well,
I
Yeah,
haven't
there
done
we
my
go.
okay,
point
One
yet.
just finish up real quick, and then
What
Rob,
I
you can
am
respond.
saying, and I want to be very clear, is that I'm not calling for an assembly, and the fact that he thinks I did is laughable.
I
right?
don't think it is, but
that I'm
but
not
Rob,
calling for
let Rob
violence.
respond.
I've specifically called
You
not
did say
for
that, yeah.
violence.
Yeah.
It's just.
But you did
crazy.
call for. I think a reasonable person listening to that thinks that you're calling for obstruction and the crime of obstruction. Now, I'll take you at your word because of your reputation for being against violence, and I think it's a strong reputation. I think even Rob would grant that, and I think that's why Rob gave you the benefit, because I did hear him giving you the benefit of the doubt. So I did think he would grant the reputation part. But
Am I
I
gonna
did,
get a
as I
chance
heard
to
it.
speak,
Yes,
or
go
is it
ahead.
just
Go ahead.
Pisco
Yeah.
and Wick?
Yeah.
Jesus
Sorry.
Christ, you're such
Go
a
ahead, respond,
baby.
Rob.
So what you can see is, as my racist opponent here wants to say things, the key is, it's not just that I'm saying he's immoral because he doesn't go do it. I'm saying he's immoral because he is literally telling people to break the law, which he is unwilling to do. Imagine having such a moral
You
certainty.
keep saying I'm unwilling to do it.
Let him
I'm
finish.
willing.
Wait, let him finish.
Shut up. Would you shut up? Right?
You keep lying. If you stopped lying, I'd stop
Just let him.
talking.
If
Just
you
let
would
him
do it,
finish.
why
real quick.
haven't you? Now, the truth is, he is telling people to break the law. That's what makes this unique. He's not telling people, hey, you should volunteer at the soup kitchen, and me saying, why don't you volunteer at the soup kitchen? He is telling his audience that things are so bad that these are domestic terrorists, that they should be treated like pedophiles, that they have the moral obligation to obstruct justice and break the law. That's what he's doing, while he himself has not done that. That's what's hypocritical about it. That's what makes him a coward. If he feels this is such an important issue that he is suggesting that his audience put themselves in harm's way where they are likely to interact in a violent confrontation with ICE, because he's not just saying lie, he's also saying if in your judgment they are going too far with the apprehension or the execution of the law, then morally you must intervene. That's what he's saying. That's exactly what he suggests. In fact, he is specifically saying that what Preddy did was moral and righteous, and he and his audience.
Yeah, what Preddy did was moral and righteous. Yes, I will stand by that. That's the first right thing you said. But what were the two examples I used?
Okay. Wait, finish up, Rob. Wait, finish up, Rob, and you'll be able to explain. Wait. So finish up, Rob, and
shit's irrelevant. I'll finish. Now, what happened with Preddy? He was killed. That's what Wick is recommending. He is recommending that people put their lives on the line, that they intentionally obstruct. That's what he's doing. I'm not making up. He literally said, break the law. You'll get arrested.
Preddy didn't break the law.
He said.
I don't think Preddy broke the law either.
Yeah, Preddy didn't obstruct. Preddy didn't break the law. The fact that he got killed.
Okay, but deal with the deal with the criticism.
I'm gonna finish my point.
Okay, go for it. Yeah.
The idea that like saying your interpretation of whether or not he broke the law is irrelevant. What you were saying is two things. One, people should break the law. And second, people should prevent ICE from apprehending people like Preddy did, which led to him dying.
Yeah, that's what happened with this conversation is you bring up like 10 lies, and I can't address them because I forget what you lied about in the first place.
Okay,
so can we address this point by point?
So Wick, I remember.
Go to jail or be in a violent altercation with ICE. That's what you're doing.
Wick,
and you're doing it from the comfort of your home while you're unwilling to go out there and do it yourself because it'll cost money. So much for your full fucking moral obligation.
Okay, Wick, these are the criticisms. The first one is related to your hypocrisy that you don't actually do the things that you are advocating others to do. Can you address that first, and then I go to the other ones?
He says I'm unwilling. Of course I'm willing. Again, just proximity again, you have a moral obligation to protect someone who you can protect, right? You have a moral obligation if you see something to say something. If I see ICE, if ICE comes to my neighborhood, if these things happen, then absolutely I have a moral obligation to do those.
So you were saying that the same that you would apply to other people.
Just real quick, I'm not calling on anyone to go to Minneapolis. I'm not calling on anyone to move. I'm not calling on anyone to go into any specific place. Never, nowhere will you find me a clip of me ever saying that. Rob is simply misrepresenting.
So the standard you're saying is I am applying my standard. My standard isn't go to these places. It's in your day to day and within a reasonable distance of what you're doing. Do that. Okay. The next criticism was that the nature of their advice is dangerous. That even if you think it's morally justified by your own view, that it will cause bad things.
I will admit that it is dangerous, but it is only dangerous because of what ICE is doing and how they are acting. And I think that you have a moral obligation to put yourselves in danger because you are. And I want to be very clear. If you exercise your First Amendment right around an ICE agent, you are putting yourself in danger. There is a chance that they will beat you, arrest you, or even kill you.
I actually agree with that. I agree with that. I agree with that given some of the findings of these court decisions about what they're doing with these people, even who are doing nothing illegal. But
it is dangerous.
Okay, but like
that's true.
Let's
put
to this.
You
I agree.
Can you just let me finish, please? You still just because something is dangerous doesn't mean that your moral obligation to do it goes away.
Okay, but put aside the clearly lawful stuff where there's an inherent danger, and I think Rob wouldn't have a problem with you advocating for that for like peaceful protests or whatever, even though it's dangerous. Now get into the obstruction.
I would even argue it's more dangerous in the long term not to do these things. If no one was recording ICE, they would be able to get away with a whole lot more, and the danger level to the citizens of the United States would increase exponentially. Okay, it would cement their power.
No one's talking about that.
Okay, but let's deal with the obstruction related activities as opposed from the arguably First Amendment protected activities relating to recording, being places, gathering, that kind of stuff. Let's talk about the obstruction related conduct. The things that I've heard you identify. And again, I'm putting out the protected stuff. Lying and preventing egregious sort of violations with your
Yes,
with
the
your physical
examples I
force.
use for egregious violations, just to be clear, is if you see ICE agents raping a woman, yes, I think you have a moral obligation to stop that. And it's so crazy, right, that anyone would suggest otherwise. And if you see them using excessive force,
Define
beating
excessive force.
bloody, yes, sure. If they have 3 agents pinning a woman on the ground, they are beating her face in, pistol whipping her.
That's not a
kicking
definition
her,
of
you
excessive
see
force. That's an
blood,
example
you
of what
see-
excessive force. That's an example, perhaps an archetype example of what it would look like. But do you have like a more like force beyond what a reasonable officer would use at a given time? Because
that's the example. What I'm using is because
Okay.
that would pass the line where, like, okay, I'm now sure enough that I think intervening is an obligation.
So that's an example
And
of like kind of
intervening
minimum
can go in
threshold
several
of
different ways. I'm not
Okay.
and again, I'm very careful and I'm very, very clear to say, do not do violence, right? You intervene.
Unless in those
and you can
cases.
intervene.
What,
Well,
you don't think it would be
in the rape
violence
case,
to
you
prevent
might.
that?
In the rape
Okay.
case specifically, you might. Okay.
Okay.
You might need to.
So there is some amount of violence, but only in the egregious
Yes.
moments where
Yes.
it raises to a certain level of depravity.
Yes, where it
Okay.
passes a threshold.
Okay, and that threshold
Okay,
is
so then
quite
my
severe.
question
Go ahead.
is, I think he's being dishonest.
Yep.
here.
Okay,
We haven't
all right.
gotten to all your
So-
lies, bitch.
Wait,
I
Shut
think
up.
you're being dishonest.
Pisco, keep going.
I think you're being dishonest. I can prove it. Was
Okay, go
Preddy
for it.
You haven't
justified to
proved
intervene?
shit.
Was
Oh,
Preddy
okay,
justified
there
to
we go.
intervene for this
Yes,
woman?
yes, absolutely.
Was she being pistol whipped by 3 people?
In the way, hold on, in the way he intervened, that was
Was she being
perfect
pistol whipped
intervention.
by
No, let
3
me finish
people?
my
Was she
answer.
being
You're going
pistol
to ask
whipped
me,
by
let
3
me answer.
people? Was she being
Yes,
raped or
in the
pistol
way
whipped?
that no.
Yes, your answer is
Preddy
yes. She was pistol
intervened
whipped by 3
in a
people.
way that was suitable to what was going on.
So
Well,
the
okay, what was
intervention.
going
You're saying.
It
I
was
think what he's
not
saying,
illegal.
Rob, is that that in this case, what he's doing doesn't rise to an obstruction. That what he's doing.
Yes, he was not obstructing
Is
in any way,
legal
shape, or form.
conduct.
Of
Okay, but
course
you.
it-
legal-
of
That's his
course
view,
it
though.
does.
I'm just saying that's his view.
Should you get in between law enforcement and a woman if they pepper spray and push her?
In the way
Sometimes
that
yes,
Preddy
sometimes
did,
yes,
that was
yes,
perfectly
right?
acceptable, and yes, you
I think
should.
that so what you could see is that Wick's interpretation of when it will be excessive force is ludicrous. He would even say this was excessive
Hold on, you
force.
think that
and
was
just-
not excessive force, what they were doing
No,
to that
I
woman?
do not think pepper
You don't
spraying and
think-
shoving someone is excessive force.
But you don't even know what she
Well,
did, right?
Okay, yeah, what did she do that?
How would you
deserved that?
determine? How would you determine if it's excessive?
No,
if you don't know
make
the
him answer the question. What did
Yeah.
that woman do that deserved her being to push on the ground multiple times and pepper
Uh-oh.
sprayed in the face?
She was pushed on the ground once at the time that he intervened, and she was pepper sprayed because she was asked to
Okay,
get
what
out
did she
of
do to deserve that?
Are you going to listen?
Are you
Tough
gonna
guy
answer
who
the
wants to
question?
send people. Yes, I'm answering the question, and you're interfering because you want to be a tough guy and send people
A
to
tough
break the
guy?
law
I'm
in
just
your
asking
stead.
you a question, man.
This is like
Then
Dark
my
Wick. This
answer-
is like Exodia Wick. I've never
Sure,
seen this Wick
it's
before.
very dark. He's telling
Zodiac.
people-
I'm simply asking you.
okay,
what-
okay.
Yeah, dude,
so-
I'm dark. I'm cool.
What did
I'm
no?
dark.
Can
I'm
you answer the
telling
question,
people to
Rob?
break the
What did
law.
that
Rob,
woman do?
Rob
that
is answering.
justified the ICE
Rob's
agent
answering. Let him
pushing
answer
her
though.
down and
Yeah,
pepper
answer.
spraying her?
Let him answer.
She was blaring a rape whistle in an officer that was
Oh.
trying to carry out lawful duties and obstructing vehicles and obstructing the officers. They had the right to pepper spray and
Can you
push
show
her
me that?
away. Yes. Watch the
Okay,
video.
show me that. Go ahead.
Yes, watch the video. You deny?
Yeah, I didn't see her blow a whistle once.
You don't think so?
Wait. Do you deny it or do you say you don't know?
I never saw her blew the whistle
So you-
once.
so you-
I
but-
never saw her
but you don't know,
actively
right?
obstructing off
You're not saying that you know that she
And
didn't
I'm
do it. You're
asking-
saying that you don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But Rob is saying he does, and I'm asking him
Okay,
to prove
yeah,
it.
Fine. Yeah, prove it.
Okay. Let me see here.
Wow.
Now, once I prove beyond a shadow or beyond reasonable doubt that she was doing this, you're going to say, never mind, this was justified and Preddy was wrong?
No, I don't think
Of
that
course you
blowing
won't.
a
It won't-
whistle.
It
isn't
won't see. So it
justified
doesn't even
officer
matter.
pushing her down.
It won't even
But you
matter.
made a claim, and
There
I'm
you
asking
go.
you to
It
back
won't
that
even
up.
matter.
So let's just see if you can back up
It
this.
won't matter. As
Alright,
you
well-
can
So
see,
you
it won't
can't
matter.
back up this claim? Is
I'm
what you're
getting
saying?
there. Do you see the screen I'm sharing?
No,
Hang on a
hold
second.
on. Give me a
Oh,
second.
that's your fucking stupidity, tough guy.
No.
Perhaps you should learn more about
I
that
didn't have it
rather
on.
than telling people to break the law. Yeah.
Okay, I'm watching the stream now.
Oh,
Hang on. I'm gonna show it so you guys can see. Oh, actually, I can't. Oops.
Oh,
sorry,
who are
guys.
you sending it to?
This is
Which one am I?
It's being shared on the Discord.
Okay.
No, sorry, you
I'm
guys can't see
watching.
it. You can watch on Rob's stream though.
See the woman in the orange leaning forward, blowing the whistle?
I don't see a whistle.
She's blowing something. It looks like.
Got her hand in front of her face. Someone's blowing a whistle. Was there? Hold on. Was there a whistle in her hand when she did that? When she got pushed?
That's a good question.
I don't see one. So, Rob, are you going to admit you lied?
Rob, we can't hear you if you're talking.
It's
Sorry.
very quiet. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Oh,
My
his
computer.
his computer, yeah, his crashed.
Oh, his computer? Uh-huh. Okay.
No, his computer did crash
Yeah,
before.
She was blowing the whistle at them. They were trying to get her away, and she was getting in the face.
Was
of
there
the
a
officer.
whistle in her hand when she got pushed?
I couldn't see. There probably
there wasn't.
unless she dropped it. And
And
We don't know
that.
the time.
And
Yeah,
she
when
got
she was
pushed.
obstructing justice, blowing the whistle, screaming and getting in law enforcement's faces. They were ushering her off a road where vehicles were trying to aggress them. They were trying to do their job.
So
yeah, but
you
at the
said
time
that
the force
she
was
had a whistle.
applied, was
Yeah,
that?
I don't think that.
How is that
Yeah, that
tailored to
didn't
the obstruction?
Because it's, as you know, Pisco, it's not just at the time the force was applied, it's what was going on prior. The obstruction that would tantamount to basically physical violence by blowing something in your ear like that, to the point where they said, okay, get the fuck back, we're trying to do this. And she continues to push forward to the officers, justifies them pushing her.
She wasn't pushing
Far
forward
worse-
to the
far worse
officers.
has
That
occurred-
officer
far
rounded
worse
on
has
her,
occurred
advanced
all
on
the
her,
time.
and pushed her.
Yeah, that's right. He pushed her. Far worse, which
To the
occurs
ground,
all the time that we see in riots, left wing and right wing.
Hold on. Let's stay with this event. You made a
Mhm.
claim. I'm asking you to back it up.
Well, he just
far, you
explained
haven't.
it. Wait, he explained that the previous actions, although we don't know the time between when that occurred and when the push happened, but it looks like it's. I mean, I'm going to presume it's similar, close in time, given when the video was taking place and who was recording. But let's just assume that it's like somewhat close in time, at least just for this present purpose. He's saying she wouldn't need to have it in the moment the push occurs, given that the officer would have known that she did it already, and it's useful.
No,
to prevent in the future.
that's a silly standard. If she
Yeah,
stopped
respond to
doing it, the force is no longer justified.
That's bullshit.
No, it's not. That's
Okay,
the
so
fucking
just be
law.
Okay, so to be clear, if she smacks the officer in the face and then just backs up, he doesn't have the right, as she's still getting in his face, to push her?
If she stopped doing the action and is no longer a threat, yes, you do
That's
not
not
have
true. They're
Again.
allowed to aggress her.
Again.
So, Pisco,
What
is that
about
the law?
what
Is the
if
law if
she
someone
slaps
punches
him
someone?
and then a day later he comes and pushes her?
We're not talking about a day later.
Okay,
The
but we are
analogy's
talking
stupid.
about a time passing, and enough time can pass where
what's
you
the-
are no longer, in your view,
Okay.
entitled to push them down. Correct?
So I just want to be clear. Your interpretation of this is
My interpretation of this is you don't have to tell me what my interpretation is. I can simply tell you what my interpretation
I
is.
punch a law
I can
enforcement
tell you.
officer.
I can
a law
simply
enforcement-
tell you.
I punch a law
If I
enforcement.
go and I blow
Wait,
a
let's
whistle in
pause.
the officer's
Wait.
face, I don't
Let's
think they should push them.
Okay, all right, Rob, go ahead. So punch an officer and then you
I
walk
punch
away.
a law enforcement officer, and the moment my knuckles slide off his face, now the officers can't do anything.
Okay,
Correct?
are we talking about a punch here?
Well, no, the principle.
Hold
on, did she punch the officer?
The principle is.
What?
I think the principle that Rob is trying to get at is if it would be justified.
That may apply if she was physically violent, but she did not touch.
Well,
that
then
officer.
we'll just ask the question, Wick. If she were actively blowing the whistle at the moment that the push happens, would you think that the push is justified and as well as the
No.
miss?
So,
So
it's
then,
irrelevant. There you
so
go.
it's irrelevant. It's overdetermined. It doesn't matter.
So I just want to be clear. Wick. If someone follows you in perpetuity everywhere and blows that whistle in your ear, you would never be justified to push them, correct?
Of course, after a certain amount of time, it would.
Wait,
but
wait,
was she
wait,
following
wait,
him
wait,
forever?
what?
Was she following
What?
him forever?
You would be allowed.
Was she following him forever?
After how long
Was she
time?
following him forever?
After how long
Was she
of a
following
time?
him forever?
After how long?
Was she following him forever?
Yeah,
How many
she's
times did she blow the whistle, Rob? How many times?
There
How
was
many
no
times did she
difference
blow
in
the whistle?
response.
Guys,
okay, Wick, I'm asking
How
you
many
a
times did she
question.
blow the
How
whistle?
long?
Hold on, answer my question. How many times did she blow the whistle?
Okay, I answered the question.
17 times.
17. Now answer my question.
17 times?
Right? Yes. Now
Yes.
answer my question.
Okay.
Wick.
How many? What
times-
was the
how
amount of
many
time
times-
that took period? Did
Wick,
she do it
how many
17 times in
Wick, how
10
many
seconds,
times-
2
how many
seconds, 1
times-
second?
Hey, Wick, how many times could someone blow a whistle?
Hold
in
on.
your ear
If
before
we
you're
those
allowed to
17
do that?
times
Wick, how
count
many
as the
times?
consecutive use of force, just like those 3 bullets
I'm
for
not
Renee
answering
Good,
any
by the way.
questions.
They
Wait,
should all be
line.
counted as
I'm not
one.
answering any questions
So
until
those
you answer
17
mine.
times, right?
I'll be quiet, and
how
then
long
I'm
of
just
time
going.
passed? in
Okay,
this?
wait. Okay, hang on. So let's. I have to go in a second, and I want Rob to finish his point, and then we can all like do our final statements because I do have to go.
Sure.
But Rob, finish your point, and then we can have our final statements.
How many times does someone allowed to blow a whistle in your ear before you're justified in pushing them back?
Okay, you can answer quick.
Sure. More than once, less than 1 million. I don't
Okay,
give
do
you.
you
that's
I
an
don't
answer.
got a Loki. We can't Loki's
Cool.
wager this. I don't know
That's
the
great.
exact
Great.
limit.
So Wick,
But I
Wick
can
is just-
say, let me answer
we
your
go. Wick
question.
is just-
Let me answer your question.
You
Stop
answered, you
interrupting.
answered.
Stop
I
interrupting.
find your
Stop
answer.
interrupting. Stop interrupting.
I
Stop
find your
interrupting.
answer.
Let me answer your
You
question.
answered?
Stop
Good,
interrupting.
now
Let me answer your
proceed.
question. Stop interrupting.
Wait.
Great.
So
So
how
answer
would
the
you elaborate on
question,
that answer,
please.
Wick? Okay, go for it.
Chose to
Yeah,
not
I'm going to
act
elaborate
like
on the
an
answer,
asshole.
please, if you'd allow me. Right?
So you said more than one,
The
less than
fact
1 million.
that we saw the
Yeah.
video. We saw the video. We don't have to use hypotheticals here. The amount of times that she may or may not have blown that whistle
Rob said 17.
did not justify in any way, shape, or form.
Well, no, if it's more than one, it's more than one and less than 1 million.
Yep, it meets your standard.
Right?
She's justified pushing.
This is stupid, guys. Can you address the fucking? This is so stupid posturing. This is stupid posturing. Can we just like address the actual like before we do the finals? Can you address the actual like accusations of each other? Like, Rob, do you really think Wick is advocating for violence?
Yes.
I don't know.
Well,
okay.
I don't know how else I can say non-violence.
Because
How many times do I have to say
Wick,
non-violence before you
Wick,
believe me? I don't
Wick,
know.
if ICE isn't acting in a gratuitous acts of violence, should you intervene with violence to prevent them?
Yeah, but you would grant that, Rob.
Again, there's
Rob,
a
you would grant
threshold
that.
there.
I'm asking.
Yeah, but you
yes or
grant
no.
that too. You would as well.
No, the problem
Yes,
is.
if 3
No,
ICE agents were
problem-
raping your wife, you'd kill them.
There we go. So now that we have this,
You wouldn't?
And he's
Would you not?
And he's suggesting.
Hold on. Would you not to stop them?
Would it be against
Would
the
you
law?
let them rape your wife?
Would it be against the law for me to stop them?
No.
Okay, you're
It's
advocating.
self-defense.
You're advocating for breaking the law. It's your advocacy that we should break the law.
No, I'm advocating
that
to
is
do
exactly-
a certain
You wanna
set of
play the clip?
actions
You wanna
that
play
they
the clip
might
like you
arrest
said?
you for.
Do you want to
That
play the
might
clip?
be illegal.
Well,
I don't know.
Rob, you have to,
Rob,
you have to grant that. You have to grant that just because they might arrest you doesn't mean that you're doing anything criminal. Because they've arrested people for things that.
He's suggesting doing things criminal. He's already suggested. He admitted it.
Well, the thing is, I think I'm actually unsure, Wick, and I'm going to be honest with like on this point.
Sure.
Are you saying that you should do things where it's like a gray zone legally? Because here's what I think. I think that peaceful protest is enough. There are obviously instances where we can't account for them, where like you would need to intervene and any reasonable person would, like some of the examples that you're bringing up and that Robert is even going to grant. But I think that like we should be clear, and I think you are when you say no violence and no force except in those circumstances. And to the extent that you're talking about obstruction, it sounds like most of what you're talking about is legally protected, but like there's some of it is not, and that ambiguity concerns me a little bit.
I'm just really curious because I don't know, right?
So I think that it's like anything you're saying, or most of the things that you would say, like in a traditional public fora.
What have I said that isn't? I'm just curious.
Oh, I think lying to federal officers might be a crime.
Okay, well, I still think you should in most cases.
You think you should lie?
Let me ask you
Illegal,
this.
illegal.
Let me ask you this.
Nice.
In the situation, let's say Preddy doesn't get down. If they try to then, after they push this one, would he been justified in doing more?
Like,
In
what were
doing
they
what?
continuing to do to the woman?
If they were gonna continue to go down, try to arrest her, grab her, whatever, and she would have struggled and it would have led to an altercation?
Yeah, that's a good
Like, is
example.
he justified in doing more? In what way?
To like stop
Like,
them from
what
trying to
more?
arrest
The
her.
answer?
Yeah, so the
Depends.
hypo
It
is
really depends on the context. I'd have to see what they were doing to give you a straight answer here.
Well, no, just accept the hypo. Don't fight it.
cases.
And I think that you should. I think this is a good hypo, and I think this will put to bed the notion that you're advocating for like dangerous advice. So
You're trying to help him, Pisco. You're trying to help him.
How am I helping him? I'm forcing him to
Again, he doesn't
answer
need to
the
help me.
question.
I haven't needed help here. I'm just giving you my honest answers. I don't know why.
So
Like
in
you
the
keep doing
situation,
this thing.
so Rob describes a situation in which they push her down,
Okay,
and
so they push her down.
Yeah, and for whatever
They
reason,
spray her in the face with
Yes,
the thing.
for
They
whatever
start
reason-
doing to her what was done to him. Yeah.
I don't think that's a hypothetical.
I'll make it as clear as possible.
Okay.
They pushed her and sprayed her. Let's say she stands back up and they're about to do it again.
They're about to push her again. Then I
Yes.
think that putting his body in the way like he did That's perfectly legal and acceptable.
But you couldn't touch him. Couldn't touch law enforcement.
You shouldn't touch law enforcement. No.
Okay, so if Preddy touched law enforcement, you'll admit he was in the wrong.
It depends on how.
What you said you shouldn't. So if he touched
violently, I don't think you should do so violently.
So some of what he's describing, Rob, I think I'm trying to understand. Some of what he's describing as obstruction might in fact be criminal, but it might be the kind of like criminal slash actions which were like the kind of obstructive activities that maybe some civil rights protesters did, putting their bodies in the line. Like, for example, it's probably criminal to block the highways or some shit. But I'm guessing that's the kind of thing that you would be in favor of, Wick, in terms of civil disobedience type things, right?
A highway specifically, maybe
not okay, but like maybe a certain street.
I'll give you an example. Like when Rosa Parks refused to move from the bus, that was illegal, right? Okay. But I think that that was a moral stance to take.
Okay, so you're advocating for things that may in fact be criminal, but not violent, not forceful, except in those really edge cases. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Rob. Let's do final responses.
I think it's clear that he's not just saying that. If that was the case, then he wouldn't be suggesting. You could see by the fact that he thinks it was grotesque what was done to this woman. She was merely pushed and pepper sprayed.
Merely pushed and pepper sprayed.
Okay, how many people were nonviolent that was pushed and pepper sprayed on January 6th?
Man,
did you talk about the brutal violence?
January 6th was years ago. We're talking what's happening now.
That's going to trigger him. That's going to trigger him.
You had years to talk about it, so surely you talked at great length about how law enforcement went over the line with many people, correct?
Tell you what, you can go back and watch my videos on these things, and you can figure it out for yourself.
Come on, Wick. I mean, we don't think that there was police brutality on that day?
What is specifically your question?
He's asking,
did you pushed and pepper sprayed?
Were there people pushed that shouldn't have been pushed? Perhaps, and that was wrong of the officers to do so.
Did you speak up about it?
Yes.
You did. Can you show me to any video where you showed this?
If you can show me where I saw an incident where I think that the cops were being too brutal, which can you point to an incident where you think the cops were being too brutal?
No, because they were fucking based. What are you talking about, Wick?
Yeah, like where can you at what point were the cops in January 6th too brutal to the protesters?
Well, for example,
I don't think they were.
Against some of the objections of some of the officers, they started to deploy less than lethal munitions, and some officers said that it was unjustified at the time. And these clearly were hitting people that were nonviolent.
Okay, I don't think you should beat up a police officer or an ICE agent for just merely using tear gas in a riot or something. I don't think
we didn't say about that. We didn't say. We said, did you object? Did you say that was violent? Did you intervene?
Intervene only when it's moral to do so, and I don't think we
didn't criticize that because that's what I'm saying. Like we didn't criticize that actually because we thought it was reasonable.
Yeah, I think it was reasonable in those situations for the police to do.
I think it was reasonable for them to do, as ICE officers are being attacked all over this country by people that are listening. That's a difference of opinion.
That's where it is.
Right. That's why I don't suggest obstructing law enforcement as they're carrying out their duties. That's the difference. I'm not telling people to break the law. I didn't tell them on January 6th. I didn't tell the people post then when many times I felt that the law was unfairly applied. Never once did I suggest it. Never once did I tell people to actively obstruct. That's what Wick's doing. Something that the coward is unwilling to do himself.
I keep saying I'm willing to do it.
Then go.
No, his prescription wasn't go to places. His prescription.
I never said
Rob, you have to deal with that. That was a response.
Bullshit.
What do you mean it's bullshit?
I'm going to explain why. If you think these are literal domestic terrorists, if you think these are people that are so bad they should be treated as pedophiles, and you're watching it, and it's not outlandish, it's not like it's going to cost you millions of dollars, and you could go and do what you're recommending your audience do, and film these people, and obstruct these people, don't tell me don't stand on your fucking high horse and tell me how important you are and how
you can say it's a ridiculous standard, but he hasn't broken it. You can say it's a ridiculous standard, but he hasn't broken it at all. Because you can say it's ridiculous. How's he broken it?
So tell your audience to break the law and then be unwilling to do it yourself.
Wait, no, I didn't advocate to break the law.
Right. He did.
And Wick is saying that he's willing to, in certain circumstances, all the caveats we've already laid out, in certain circumstances.
It is absolute
within his home.
It is absolute moral cowardice. Absolute moral cowardice to tell your audience to put their lives in jeopardy and to go break the law while you're unwilling to take the quick trip to go.
He says he's willing. Oh, the quick trip isn't part of it.
Yeah, can you give me a clip? Hey, hold on. I'll give you the W. if you can find me a single clip of me telling my audience to go to Minneapolis.
It doesn't matter. You told them.
Okay, so you can't find a single clip of me telling my audience to go to Minneapolis. So when you say that I'm telling my audience to go out there to go to Minneapolis, you're lying, correct?
No, I didn't say you told them to go to Minneapolis.
He's saying that if this is so important, then you should be willing to. But I just don't think of that.
And it's not just
entailed.
Minneapolis.
Yeah, I don't think that's implied in what I said, though.
Go to LA, go to New York, go to Chicago, wherever else ICE is operating.
I think ISIS should be opposed, but I ain't going to Afghanistan or fucking things like that either.
This is such an important issue that you need to tell your audience.
I think the cartel should be opposed.
But Rob, isn't this your whole fucking shtick, Rob? You're like, if you support
down to Mexico, am I?
Isn't this your whole shtick? Like, if you support America giving aid,
you think that the border should be secured, but I don't see you going to the border.
Suggesting that people engage in lawful defense of the country is different than suggesting people break the law and actively put themselves in physical damage and then being unwilling to go do that yourself.
You're understating your broader point because
wait. To the point. No, I refuse to accept, and you're blindfold ignorance.
You don't get a choice. You're accepting it. You accept it whether you like it or not.
I disagree. I'm not accepting it. You're the coward that's telling people to go break their law and put their lives in danger while you're not doing it yourself.
No, but he's willing to.
Oh, if it ever comes towards me, I'll do it. Bullshit. Then go. You're a coward. Imagine you would be the person you think this is the civil rights movement of the day, and imagine being like, yeah, I'd stick up, but it's an hour away, so I'm too busy. But you guys should all do it. You guys should do it.
Wait, Rob. I think you're hiding your power level a little bit here, Rob, because I've heard you make this point about Ukraine funding, where you're like, if you want America to donate or to give money to Ukraine, you should be going to Ukraine to fight. And so, like, when you just say, well, no, this is just for, like, illegal stuff, I don't think that that's right. This is the kind of argument you deploy a lot about hypocrisy when it's not entailed. And I don't think that Wick has said, I want you to go out of your way to go to places that are, in fact, but just basically saying, if in the course of your day-to-day, where it's not, like, unreasonably inconvenient, you see it. And now, you might say that's ridiculous, that anyone who has that standard should also be willing to travel across the country. You might say that's ridiculous, but I don't think it's hypocrisy.
I don't give a shit what you think.
Oh, okay.
I think that it is clear rank hypocrisy to suggest that people break
unless
the law.
Unless you're willing to go to the border tomorrow,
let him respond.
I don't think that you care about border enforcement. Unless you're willing to go to the border and start trolling, right? Put on your little plate carrier.
You made the point.
You made the point. I think you're a
hypocrite. You made the point, Wick. Let Rob respond.
Telling someone to break the law and personally put their life on the line is different than saying that lawful policies that we have should be enacted. That our border could be protected by people using a legal means to do it. You are suggesting people, if people follow your lies, the predictable outcome would be, one, they get arrested, as you admitted, and secondly, that they would find themselves likely to be in violent altercations with ICE. It is not a burden that's impossible for you to meet, to travel a few hours to get to one of these places and actually do this. The civil rights movement at our time. You think these
Nor is it impossible for you to go to the border.
I'm not advocating that we.
Are you advocating for border control?
I didn't advocate that people break
the law. Are you advocating for border control?
I'm not advocating that people break the law.
Are you advocating for border control?
Why is that? Okay, that's it. Wait, Rob. That's a distinction. That's a distinction. Why is it a distinction with a difference? Like, who cares if it's? Isn't it the whole thing? Like, your conviction is X. You think it's really important. Therefore, you should be willing to do it. So why is the illegality? I know that's a difference. Why is that a difference with a distinction?
It is a different calculus when you were telling people to break the law, right? Saying that you want certain laws enforced, right? And therefore, if you want them enforced, then you must yourself go volunteer to enforce those laws is different than saying you want certain laws broken and you want people to put their lives on the line.
Yeah, it's different, but why does that matter for the hypocrisy point? I agree it's different.
Because the level of it is so staunchly.
Wait, let him respond.
You got a dick in your mouth there,
He's just stuttering.
You got a dick in your mouth there, Wick? What was that?
What would be wrong with that? Are you homophobic? Now you see, Wick is racist. You're homophobic.
Sure. Yes.
We're a little racist. It's okay.
Can you guys do your five? I gotta go to bed.
The point is, like, the disingenuous nature. You're right. You can do threshold things with anything, right? What I'm saying is the threshold's clearly different when you're suggesting people break the law and end up in violent confrontations with ICE. And you're unwilling to do so yourself. It is clear that he is a coward and that he doesn't think this issue is that important, or he would be there.
And you would be there in the border.
What's preventing you from going, Nick?
Okay, is he done with his closing statement? Can I make mine?
Wait. So wait. So I think what Wick would respond to that, and we can tell me if you agree, is that that's not part of your prescription, and you don't think that it's like it's something you want to do to go to travel Minnesota.
Say that one more time.
What's stopping you from going to Minnesota? Is Rob's question.
I'm not advocating for anyone to go to Minnesota.
You don't want to go there right now, right?
It's cold, bro.
Civil rights matter as long as I'm comfortable.
Okay, can we
straight from the
I think the local community is important, and that you shouldn't abandon your local community to go off on some adventure.
Oh, the old snaggletooth tough guy. It's treat them like pedophiles unless it's cold out.
All I'm saying is I'm not seeing your fat ass at the border. That's all.
I'm not advocating people break the law.
You're advocating for border control, but you're not willing to do it yourself.
Right, I'm not advocating.
There was plenty of people who did. A lot of civilians went to the border to participate in border watches. I saw it on the news all the time. They went to the Canadian border too to do this, where we saw people all the time, civilians, helping border patrol and ICE agents find those border crossers. You advocated for that strongly, and you haven't done shit.
Show me once.
You haven't done shit. You haven't been to the border. You haven't been patrolling.
Show once where Wick said. Show once where Wick said go to Minneapolis.
Wick,
you can't. You got wrecked again, Rob.
All right, let's do
I'm dealing with two insurrectionist supporters. So
me? Wait, what the fuck did I do? I've been moderating it. I feel like I've been pretty fair.
Nonetheless, the point I'll make is I never called for individuals to go out and secure the border. Wick has called for individuals to go out and break the law.
And so give us your final.
Wow, strangely silent.
You having a heart attack?
Well, our response to that, which is like it's a difference, but not necessarily one with a distinction.
Yeah, there's no distinction. You just keep on saying, "Well, he wore a red shirt and he was wearing a blue shirt."
No,
it was on Tuesday, Wednesday.
Break the law.
And that makes it different for your prescriptions. That if it's a fervent prescription with respect to breaking the law, you should be willing to do it. But if it's a fervent prescription that is in accordance with law, you shouldn't be willing to do it. I just don't understand like where that principle comes from.
Saying that I mean, I don't know what to say, Pisco. I guess I'll make this as clear as possible. I'll make this because you're both so stupid in bad faith. Yes.
I'm stupid? Wait. Is that an unreasonable question? Bro. Why is fervent belief?
It is very you Steelman, what you think my argument is, Pisco?
I think basically you're saying that Wick views this as so important that he's willing to advocate something that is like drastic. And given the stakes, the drastic stakes, that you should be willing to do essentially what's a minor inconvenience given those stakes and given what you're recommending. That's, I think, the Steelman, right? And that the failure of the mismatch between the way that he's presenting the issue and what he himself personally is willing to do, given the nature of what's stopping him from being in a place, that there's a mismatch there and that there's an inconsistency.
It's more than a mismatch. You're on the right direction. Someone that wants to go secure the border is at very little danger on physical health compared to actually challenging and obstructing.
Hold on, cartels. Hold on, are border patrol agents under threat? They have to wear fucking masks and hide their identity because they are under such threat from cartels and evil people who want to hurt them? Are you saying that they aren't facing a threat at the border?
And certainly is it less danger legally. Now, I know it's interesting that Wick wants to talk about the cartel. Crazy. I noticed he didn't have shit to say when 200,000 kids came up missing under the prior administration, or record numbers of people died at the border.
This is blowing up. We're gonna get to Carter Page in a second, and I have to go. Rob, we'll give you your last word, then Wick. So, Rob, encapsulate the accusation against Wick. Do you stand by your accusations? Do you think that there's more evidence for them? What's your overall disposition? And then give your closing thoughts.
Overall disposition is people like Wick and probably Pisco as well that want ICE removed, defunded, or to stop enforcing the law, want to use violence and intimidation and law breaking, or ignore that violence, intimidation, and law breaking to get their political way. This is something the left does all the time. They did it in the Summer of Love. They're doing it now. And it, by the definition that they have talked about, meets insurrection. Wick is a fucking coward and a terrible person for instructing or recommending to his audience to not only put themselves in harm's way, but to break the law. As long as people like Wick have people that listen to them, which thank God Wick doesn't have a big audience, but as long as they do listen to that, this will make violent confrontations inevitable, which is what Wick wants and what the people like him want. They want people to die. They want people to get hurt so that they can say this justifies removing ICE. He ought to be ashamed ashamed of himself. I can't believe he has the balls to act like he has some sort of moral high ground when he is literally telling people to break the law. He has no idea what the fucking law is. He has a subjective interpretation of what violence is going too far from law enforcement, etc. And he's going to lead to people being killed, and he does not give a fuck. In fact, he would be happy not only because it would achieve his political ends, but the motherfucker, if one of his audience members was killed, would go on and make the story about him and brag about it. He is disgusting and despicable and a great representation of the left. And it's why we should not listen to these motherfuckers, because they'll sit there and gnash their teeth and scream about things like insurrections and violent right-wingers, while at the same time all morality is subjected to them, and they'll literally advocate for the breaking of the law.
Wick, we'll give you your final response.
Certainly. I'll try to be very brief. Rob, when the federal agents come and they're pushing your wife, and I see them pushing your wife on the street, I will stand in the way, because what that would be doing would be they would be doing something wrong. I want to live in a world where people see federal agents of the state brutalizing civilians and do something to try to stop it. I have repeatedly said, do so non-violently unless very high thresholds are met, which you've agreed with. I've said repeatedly, right, that the main things that I want to do, and this is a thing I've repeated most of all, is to record, is to warn others. And the fact that you have to continuously lie about my position, I think the audience can see it. You're flailing, you're sinking, and frankly, I think that your defense of the indefensible, of this administration's continuous lies over and over and over again, of DHS, Kristi Noem, Bovino from the Lollipop Guild, all these people's continually lying to the American public about what happened. And you specifically lying about what we saw in that video, saying that Preddy had done something illegal or immoral, when in fact he's a true American patriot and hero who was gunned down in the street by federal agents, right? I don't know if they did it on purpose or as an accident, or if there's an accidental ditch charge. I can't say. I wish there would be a fair investigation so we could find out. But the sad fact is, under this administration, there will be no fair investigation. They're not even investigating the good shooting, right? They actively tried to, they had to get the Minnesota State had to get a TRO, an emergency TRO, to prevent federal agents from destroying evidence in this case. That's insane, right? At the end of the day, I just think it's really clear that you're a liar and a loser, and you will always and continuously be sucking Trump's dick until you choke on it. That's all I got to say to you. Peace out.
Later, guys.
Hey, I hope that law enforcement doesn't find
Bye.
you, Wick. Good luck.
Fed posting. My thoughts. Listen, I think that I was just trying to facilitate the conversation between them. I don't know. I think it became a little bit ridiculous. But yeah, I'm tired. We should organize like actual structured discussions. But honestly, if they're all kind of like that and it's just like bullshit posturing, I'd rather, I don't know. Never mind. All right, I'm going to go to bed. I love you guys very much. Like the stream, sub the channel, whatever. And I think Wick's speech is protected, and I don't think he should be banned on platforms. I don't think that he should say, I advocate obstruction. And I think that he should, I think when you distill what he's saying, it's a little bit much different than how I heard it. So I would definitely change how he said it, but love you guys.